Chapter 15:13. Why haven't I seen Ethereal in the past few days? Chu Qingyan enjoyed being fed by Big Ice Cube personally. She was enjoying her life, and when she was living a carefree life, she would start to pay attention to the people around her. As she did so, she realized that she had not seen Kongling for a long time, and so she asked her about it. Xiao Su wiped the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief. When he heard her question, he said calmly, "He's receiving his punishment in the torture chamber." This answer immediately pulled her back to the dangerous scene on the day of the birth. Consort Yu's people had disguised themselves as midwives and infiltrated the palace. Strictly speaking, this incident was due to Ethereal's incompetence in supervising. However, that person's disguise was perfect. If one had not seen the person in person before, it would have been difficult to recognize them. Moreover, Ethereal was so busy that his feet barely touched the ground during that period of time, so he did not have the energy to distinguish them one by one. Therefore, in a broader sense, the blame could not be entirely placed on Ethereal. Thus, Chu Qingyan explained her analysis to him. When she was done, she even pleaded for leniency. Your wife and son were only able to have a successful birth because of Ethereal's wholehearted care. Therefore, even if there is no credit, there is still hard work. Moreover, this credit is great. You can't treat your subordinates like this. Otherwise, they won't recognize you as their master in the future. After listening to the little fellow's rambling, Xiao Su's eyes curved into a smile. He scooped up a spoonful of soup and stuffed it in her mouth. Eat your food properly. Chu Qingyan puffed up her cheeks and glared at him. She crushed a piece of cartilage with her teeth. Xiao Su shook his head. He thought that if he did not explain this matter to her clearly, she would not give up. Thus, he put the bowl aside and leaned back in his chair. He looked like he was going to have a long talk with her. The punishment was requested by him. It was not my idea. Chu Qingyan swallowed the meat in her mouth and raised her eyebrows in disbelief. Xiao Su knew that she would think that way. He was not surprised at all. He continued. Every member of the Valiant Blaze Cavalry is very disciplined. If they make a mistake in their mission, or if they don't do their job well, they will accept the punishment themselves. This is a rule that everyone has tacitly agreed to. It is also because of this that it is even more difficult to make any mistakes. Ethereal has indeed made a mistake in principle. If Jasper didn't save them, the result would have been. The result was not what everyone expected, so Xiao Su continued. So even if I don't punish him, he won't be able to get over it. There are no ifs and buts when Xiaolai does things. So, to make himself feel better, he has been staying in the torture chamber for the past 2 days. Chu Qingyan was silent. She had been with the Valiant Blaze Cavalry in Lianqing for many years. She knew that they were people who strived for perfection. They were cruel to their enemies, but even crueler to themselves. Turin had once said that if they were careless, they would be the ones to die. Thus, she could understand how they felt. She tilted her head and said, I understand. But no matter how you punish him, it will be enough. It has been almost half a month. I don't want Yanluo to cry to me when she comes back. Xiao Su reached out and pinched her nose. I understand. She smiled brightly at him. In the afternoon, Xiao Su appeared outside the torture chamber. At this moment, Ethereal walked out with one hand on his shoulder. His footsteps were a little unsteady. When he saw the slender figure on the ground, he slowly raised his head. When he saw who it was, he immediately knelt down and saluted with his back straight. Master, get up. Xiao Su raised his hand. Thank you, Master. Ethereal tried his best to appear normal and not reveal a trace of pain. Xiao Su frowned when he saw that Ethereal's forehead was covered in cold sweat, and he was barely holding on. It's about time. It's time to go back to work. Ethereal immediately replied. I've already given the instructions. The herbs have been sorted and collected. As long as Xining and the rest follow the prescription, there won't be any problems. Xiao Su looked at him without saying a word. Ethereal couldn't stand his master's gaze, and was the first to admit defeat. He knelt down again with a defeated expression. Master, I feel terrible. It's my fault for not doing my job well, and almost causing harm to little Master. I've come to the torture chamber to lessen my guilt. This will make me feel better. His snow-white clothes were slowly soaked with blood. It was a ghastly sight. Xiao Su didn't let him get up with his hands behind his back. Instead, he said indifferently, "How long do you plan to feel guilty for?" Ethereal raised his head in surprise. His master continued, "It's an eventful time now. Why don't you stay in the palace? If something happens again, are you planning to atone for your crimes with your death?" Ethereal was stunned. "Don't lose the watermelon for the sesame." Xiao Su's gaze fell on the blood on his shoulder. "What I taught you is not to repeat the mistakes of the past, and not to let you wallow in failure." Xiao Su turned around and left, leaving behind a sentence, "Merits offset demerits. There won't be a next time." Ethereal stared blankly at the black figure walking in the golden light. In the end, he couldn't help but laugh. His master had taken such a big detour to express his forgiveness. But his heart was so warm that his eyes reddened. His master was right. He couldn't be depressed anymore. There were still many things waiting for him to do. He couldn't lose the big picture for the small. Ethereal had just stood up when a charming figure walked out of the torture chamber. Who else could it be but Water Spirit? At this time, she was lazily leaning against the door frame, her arms crossed as she teased. 2 days ago, Huling came to persuade you, but you wouldn't listen. Now that master is here, you changed your mind? Ethereal turned around, his dejected expression swept away. It was replaced by his usual elegance and gentleness. He smiled faintly. With Ethereal's fiery temper, do you think I would listen even if he said it? Xueling nodded. Indeed, he's always able to say comforting words to anger people to death, but his intentions are also good. I know, but the punishment at the time wasn't enough. I don't want to forgive myself so easily. Ethereal replied, a trace of determination in his eyes. Water Spirit chuckled. You guys have different personalities, but your stubbornness is the same. Forget it, forget it. Since Master is here personally, then I don't need to waste my breath. You should go back quickly. Otherwise, the little Princess Consort and the others will miss you. She was about to leave after saying this, but after taking 2 steps, she seemed to have thought of something. She raised her hand and threw something to him. She shrugged and said, although you are a doctor and have many good things, I am also entrusted by someone. Who is it? Torin. When she finished speaking, she had already disappeared, leaving only the flower petals spiraling on the ground. Ethereal looked at the wound medicine in his hand and couldn't help but smile. It was enough to have these brothers in his life. But he looked at Water Spirit's departing figure, his eyes filled with pity. Water Spirit hadn't stepped into the torture chamber for many years, because this was the place where she and Feng Ling had first met. Now that she was back, she must be feeling terrible. Ethereal shook his head and sighed softly. He put away the medicine bottle and turned to leave. The dead were gone, but the living should still live well. Chapter 15-14. Today was a beautiful day with a gentle breeze. Father Chu had snatched his precious grandson from his son-in-law, taking him for himself. He was currently playing hide and seek with Huling and the others. He lowered his head and rubbed his grandson who was biting his finger. He said with a laugh, Baby Kong Kong, grandfather will bring you high into the sky. Saying this, his feet tapped the ground and he flew up a tall tree in the imperial garden with the child. Kong Kong felt the scenery in front of him quickly change. The leaves and blue sky suddenly came closer, and he immediately let go of his claws. He waved his hands and smiled happily. Huling had just brought people here. Seeing this scene, his legs almost went soft from fright. He quickly flew under the tree and said to the old man, Old master, quickly come down. It's too high up, little master will be scared. At this time his little master let out a zhi laugh, instantly slapping him in the face. Father Chu looked down with a look of disdain. Baby Kong Kong wouldn't be so cowardly. Huling tried his best to persuade him, but Father Chu remained unmoved. He even wanted to stomp his feet. He had no other choice and could only fly up to the branch. He almost bowed. Old master, look at how high this place is. If there is an accident. However, before he could finish, Father Chu patted his shoulder with a look of disdain. White impermanence, move to the side. You're blocking Baby Kong Kong from seeing the scenery. Huling was instantly petrified. How could it be like this? In the end, both sides took a step back. Hualing also remained on the branch. It was a good thing the tree trunk was thick enough and could withstand the weight of several people. Father Chu crossed his legs and held the child in his arms, bathing in the sun and wind. It was a very beautiful scene. Of course, he automatically ignored Hualing's existence. Hualing knew that he was already a hindrance to the old man. So he didn't want to be a hindrance anymore. So he dutifully stood guard, acting as an invisible person. In reality, Hualing was very surprised. According to Ethereal's meaning, the old man had already returned to his past self and should have forgotten martial arts. However, ever since the old man woke up, although he treated what happened on the battlefield as a dream, he did not forget his skills. Moreover, it was also at this time that he found out that the young general's martial arts from 16 years ago was actually this high. It was no wonder that even someone as powerful as Turin was defeated by her. Chu Machen's father didn't care about this bad guy who wanted to snatch his grandson away from him. He smiled and played with his grandson in his arms. Baby Kong Kong, you have to remember that some people look serious on the surface, but they're actually evil on the inside. Hualing was innocently implicated. Old master, can you stop bad-mouthing this subordinate in front of little master? What if little master doesn't bring this subordinate to play in the future? Darling Kong Kong, your father doesn't seem to like being the emperor. Grandpa sees that he's very busy. Why don't you stop being the emperor in the future? Let's kidnap someone to take over your father's mess, okay? The old man's words were simply shocking to death. Hualing looked at little master who was clapping his hands and making ee sounds. He really wanted to scratch the wall and cry to the sky. At this time, Xiao Su brought his two royal brothers through the imperial garden. When Hualing saw his savior come, he immediately jumped down from the tree to greet him. When he was about to report the old man's whereabouts, the person in the tree had already confessed. Son-in-law Fanzi, ho, I'm here. Chu Machen's father waved his hand and warmly greeted them. Who was the one with the stupid name Fanzi? Xiao Yao really wanted to throw his fan. Wasn't it because he was holding a fan the first time they met that he was given this nickname? It wasn't as good as old third being called Ho-Ho, but thinking about it, Yao Yao? Xiao Yao's lips twitched. Could he lean against the wall and vomit? He might as well have been called Fanzi. Xiao Ho was filled with admiration for this general, who had turned the tides on the battlefield. Hearing this, he raised his head and cupped his hands. Old man Chu. Xiao Su raised his head and saw the old man and his son in his arms. He nodded and did not make a sound. He knew that as soon as he was born, his son would immediately want him to hold him. So the group of people left. Hualing rubbed his eyes. He thought that his master would have the old man leave. However, his master left like this, left. Chu Machen's father seemed to have seen through his thoughts as he said to his grandson in his arms. Do you see that? This person is so bad. At this time, Xiao Yao turned around to look at Chu Machen jumping up and down in the tree. He raised his hand and nudged his little brother in confusion. Why isn't royal brother doing anything? Xiao Ho smiled. Maybe it's because he believes in old man Chu. Xiao Yao didn't really believe it. It seemed like old man Chu was like an old child. Letting a child take care of a child, wouldn't something happen? At this time, Xiao Su, who had been silently walking, spoke up. Father-in-law knows what he's doing. Only then did Xiao Yao believe him. In any case, whatever eldest brother said was the truth. Xiao Ho laughed and shook his head. His second brother always believed his royal brother's words without a doubt. Even if he pointed at a stone and said it was gold, he would probably pick it up and bite it. When they turned the corner, Xiao Su turned to look at the person on the tree branch in the distance, his gaze softening. The little fellow had once told him that there could be 2 or more personalities in a person's body. Perhaps he couldn't trust other people, but the old man was the one he could trust. Because the old man had once released the version of himself that he didn't want to face the most in order to protect the people he cared about. So the old man was the least likely person to hurt Kong. Xiao Su looked away and continued walking. At this time, a white-haired figure squeezed onto the tree. Hey, why are you here? Chu Machen's father glared at him unhappily. The Emperor Emeritus stroked his beard. Only you are allowed to get close to my great-grandson, but I'm not allowed to? Ling covered his face with his hands. Oh no, the Emperor Emeritus is here too. Chu Machen's father snorted. You occupied Kong darling for the whole morning yesterday, and now you have the nerve to say it. The Emperor Emeritus chuckled. Then who was the one who occupied her yesterday afternoon? Chu Machen's father's eyes drifted. Then he seemed to remember something and his eyes widened. Last night, you stayed in my son-in-law's palace for an hour. The Emperor Emeritus was so angry that his beard blew and his eyes widened. If you hadn't occupied my place for an extra hour yesterday afternoon, would I have stayed there? The Emperor Emeritus was so angry that he used the word I. Chu Machen's father chuckled. I'm not listening, I'm not listening, I'm not listening. As he spoke, he flew to another tree within Kong and turned around to make a face at the Emperor Emeritus. Chu Huayuan, you black-hearted person. We agreed on a 50-50 split, but you cheated. You can't play like this. The Emperor Emeritus was furious. He rolled up his sleeves and chased after them. So the two of them fought in the Imperial Garden. No one knew who stepped on a flower or who knocked over a pot. But soon the petals fell one after another, filling the air with petals. The culprit who caused all this in Kong was clapping at this time. Yeah. Bao Bao's translation came online again. Flower fly fly fly. Ling's head was full of petals and grass, and he was speechless and tearful. Little master, don't be led astray. Chapter 15:15. Chu Qingyan had been lying on the bed for almost a month. She couldn't get out of bed, couldn't take a bath, and felt like she was going to mold. After having a son, she had to get up in the middle of the night to feed him, and often couldn't sleep at night. Fortunately, there were people fighting to take care of her son during the day, so she had time to rest well. Today, she had just woken up when she met a pair of eyes as black as ink. At first glance, it looked like a deep pool, and it had a magical power that wanted to suck her in. She blinked and pulled herself back from this huge attraction. She laughed in her heart that she already had a son. But she still couldn't resist the temptation of a handsome man. Why are you back? She remembered that he was going to discuss a water project with Xiao today. I've finished explaining everything. Xiao Su answered casually. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. You're not going to push things to them again, are you? Xiao Su said matter-of-factly. They have nothing to do all day. If I don't give them something to do, they'll think of slacking off again. Moreover, none of them have a family. I have a family, so naturally, it's them who can do more work. Chu Qingyan felt that the big ice cube's words made sense. Thinking of how her previous suggestion had trapped her two brothers-in-law, she suddenly felt a little apologetic. Xiao Su didn't come today to discuss his official business with the little fellow. He had more important things to do. However, after being interrupted by the little fellow, he actually couldn't remember the words he had prepared for a moment. Chu Qingyan stretched and sat up, but saw that he was frowning slightly. She thought that he was thinking about the matters of the imperial court, so she didn't disturb him. She prepared to take the basket at the side to check the little socks that she had sewn for Nkong these 2 days. But just as she reached out, she didn't get anything, but a pair of strong hands held her. She was stunned and met his serious and solemn gaze. She didn't know what he was up to, so she asked in amusement, "What's the matter?" That pair of eyes that had always been cold and emotionless were now slowly being covered by a gentle and warm color. That pair of eyes was even more moving than a love poem. His Adam's apple bobbed, and he said in a deep and affectionate voice, "Ian, I owe you a wedding that was extravagant and extravagant. Now I plan to repay my debt. Are you willing to accept it?" A certain someone's brain crashed. "I want to take care of you, love you, and accompany you for the rest of my life. I also want to leave the rest of my life in your hands." Before this, there was no ceremony. Now, I want everyone to witness my firm determination. Are you willing to give me this opportunity? Who said that cold men didn't know how to speak sweet nothings? Sometimes, when they spoke honestly and seriously, they were more affectionate and loving than ever. Chu Qingyan was completely shocked by what he said. Her mouth was slightly agape, and she felt like her jaw was about to fall off. It was as if the scene in front of her was an illusion. Xiao Su raised his hand to close her jaw, and touched her face, his eyes full of tender love. They should have gotten married a year ago, but unfortunately, accidents kept happening, and even now, the child was born, and they still didn't have a clear identity as husband and wife. It was also because of this that the officials in the imperial court dared to ignore her existence, and again used the reason of the harem being without a master to squeeze her into the harem. That was why those hiding in the dark dared to speak ill of her. Before he met the little fellow, he had always lived as he pleased, and didn't care about the secular world. But now, he didn't want her to be wronged at all. He wanted to give her an identity that could stand by his side and enjoy all the glory with him. Chu Qingyan rubbed her eyes. The person in front of her didn't disappear because of this, and she realized that this wasn't a dream. She always thought that she and Big Ice Cube would naturally come to this place, and they were already used to this way of getting along. They had been together for 6 years, and if they were an ordinary couple, they would be an old couple. She had expected that they would have a wedding, but she didn't think that he would propose to her. When she was in the modern world, she had also looked forward to an earth-shattering and romantic proposal. Later, when she came to the ancient world, she no longer had such thoughts. After all, the ancient world was different, and they wouldn't understand these things. However, her Big Ice Cube's actions today moved her to the extreme, because she felt his love and respect for her, because she was already his, and the child had already been born, so he didn't need to do this. But he held her in the palm of his hand, and was willing to give her everything. She could feel his sincerity. "Are you willing to hold hands with me for the rest of our lives?" Xiao Su asked gently again. Chu Qingyan held his hand back and replied affectionately, "I'm willing to hold your hand and grow old with you." His heart that was hanging in the air finally settled down. He wasn't as calm as he appeared on the surface. Facing the woman he loved for the first time, it was inevitable that he would be nervous. Xiao Su smiled and pulled her into his arms. He announced, "The wedding will be in 3 days." Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows. "Great, so you've already planned this. Proposing to me is just a formality, right?" Xiao Su held his forehead and smiled. "The wedding has been prepared since the day Kong was born. You can only be my woman for the rest of your life." She snorted. "You're so confident. Aren't you afraid that I'll reject you?" His eyes shone. "I won't give you the chance." She blushed. "So rushed? Wife, don't forget that we haven't done it for a few months." His voice disappeared by her ear, and her face turned even redder. This indecent man, thinking about this every day. Xiao Su was satisfied with his wit. He would kidnap his wife to the bridal chamber after her confinement. This way, no one would dare to disturb their time alone. "Wait." The person in his arms suddenly called out. He asked, "What's wrong?" "I won't agree to your proposal today. You have to propose again." "Why?" "I imagined that I would be in beautiful clothes and accept your proposal in a glamorous manner. Not in this unkempt and dirty appearance that I haven't taken care of for almost a month. So, I don't want to accept it. I don't want to accept it." Xiao Su didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the end, he lowered his head and covered her chattering mouth. She was only satisfied after he left her a sentence in her ear. "No matter when you're in front of me, you're the most beautiful." Over at Prince Yi's estate, they were in a state of dead silence. Xiao Ho held the news that he had just received in his hand, and he was completely stunned. The letter said that after the princess fell off the cliff, she saw Xiao Lai's fire spirit roaming around. He had to go to the palace. As long as there was a 1 in 10,000 chance, he had to find her. Chapter 15-16. Xiao Ho didn't take a carriage. Instead, he rode a horse straight to the palace. Because he had Xiao Su's imperial edict, he could ride a horse after passing through the palace gate. They had never seen Prince Yi so anxious and uneasy. Seeing this, the palace guards immediately opened the gate for fear of delaying the important event. Thus, Xiao Ho arrived at the imperial study without any hindrance. Xiao Su received the news the moment Xiao Ho entered the palace, and was waiting here. Xiao Su believed that his third brother wouldn't use the imperial edict unless it was an emergency. Although it was for his convenience in entering and leaving the palace, he had never seen him use it. As soon as Xiao Su put down the memorial in his hand, a man appeared in front of the table, gasping for breath. The eunuch next to him apologized to him with an embarrassed face. I failed to stop Prince Yi. I'm sorry. Xiao Su raised his hand to dismiss the eunuch. He looked at the man in front of him with surprise. What happened? It's not your style to be so panicked. Xiao Ho did not plan to beat around the bush and asked straightforwardly. Imperial brother, this younger brother has something to ask you. Last year, when I planned the assassination on Phoenix Mountain, Hualing appeared nearby. Was it because you knew about my plan? Or was it because of something else? Why do you suddenly ask? Xiao Su had a guess. Xiao Ho met his gaze with sharp eyes. Imperial brother, I want to know if Zijing is still alive. It was rare to see him take off his warm exterior and reveal such a sharp side. Xiao Su admired him. It seemed that Pang Zijing's matter was his reverse scale. I can't answer you, but I can take you to see someone. As soon as Xiao Su finished speaking, Xiao Ho's eyes lit up. It was different from the usual light with a smile. It was like a light that had been extinguished was lit again. The former was distant and unapproachable, the latter was joyful and hopeful. Okay. Seeing this, Xiao Su sighed in his heart and led him to Yansu Palace. Chu Qingyan had already received the news. She sat in front of the bed and waited for the two to come. She only knew that Xiao Ho had something to ask her, but he didn't have time to tell her what it was. But when Xiao Ho entered the inner hall and saw the person on the bed, Chu Qingyan clearly saw the light in his eyes dim. Third brother, what's the matter? Chu Qingyan was confused. Imperial brother brought him to see Imperial sister-in-law, not her. This difference made him feel dejected all of a sudden. Xiao Ho cheered up and pursed his lips. Imperial sister-in-law, can you tell me if Zijing is still alive? Yes, he had heard little rascal say that he wanted Imperial sister-in-law to help him escape. At that time, he was too confident that she couldn't escape from him, so he didn't take it to heart. But when he thought of the fire spirit appearing at the bottom of the cliff and Imperial brother's attitude just now, hope rekindled in his eyes. He stared at the person in front of him. Chu Qingyan was stunned. She didn't expect Xiao Ho to come to her, because of Zijing. She also didn't expect that after so long, he would be able to find out that it was her. She had to admit that he was persistent and infatuated with her. But, I remember that you found Zijing's body at the bottom of the cliff. Didn't you already confirm it? Chu Qingyan raised her eyebrows and looked at him. Xiao Ho was stunned. A stubborn and probing look appeared in his eyes. Imperial sister-in-law, that body isn't Zijing's, is it? Seeing that he was holding on, the hands hidden in his sleeves trembled slightly. If they confirmed that Zijing was dead, she believed that this man would be ruined. He would never have the courage to live again. Chu Qingyan smiled. Third brother, I'm very happy that Zijing's feelings for you are reciprocated. She called Jasper forward. Jasper walked in front of Xiao Ho and handed him a letter. Third brother, take a look. Maybe you'll have an answer after you read it. If this had happened before yesterday, she wouldn't have been able to confirm whether Zijing was alive or she would probably have said that she didn't know. But today, she received a letter from Yanluo. The letter was plain and unremarkable. The handwriting on the cover was very messy, as if it had been written in a hurry. But in Xiao Ho's eyes, the letter seemed to carry an extremely heavy weight. He took the letter, opened the seal, and took out the paper. There was only one line on it. Zijing has safely passed the critical period. Don't miss her. It was just a few words, but Xiao Ho stared at them for a long time. He stared at them so long that the heat in his chest spread to his eyes. It was as if a hole had been torn open in the cage that imprisoned him, and sunlight poured in. He felt warmth and joy that he hadn't felt in a long time. It was a mixture of emotions, and he couldn't tell whether he was happy or sad. Chu Qingyan saw him like this and felt more confident. I promised Zijing that I would send her out of the capital, but on the day of her departure, she found out that you were attacked, so she went to the mountain to look for you. In the end, she fell off the cliff. You know what happened during this period? When Holing found out that she had fallen off the cliff, he immediately mobilized people nearby to search for her. But by the time they found her, her life was hanging by a thread. You can say that she was on her last breath. Do you remember Yanluo? She was the one who saved Zijing's life. If she had stayed in the capital, Zijing would have died. Hearing this, Xiao couldn't help but clench his fists. His face turned pale. Later, Yan Luo thought of her father, divine Dr. Luo. Holding on to a glimmer of hope, she took Xijing out of the city in the middle of the night. Previously, we set up Xijing's departure to fake an accident, so that people would think that she had died in an accident. We also found the fake corpse, but no one expected such an accident to happen. So you used the fake corpse to replace her at the bottom of the cliff. Xiao wanted to cry and laugh at the same time. His emotions were extremely complicated. That's right. Because the situation was urgent, we didn't know about your relationship. In addition, I promised Xijing that I wouldn't let her get involved in the political disputes between the two countries. So everything was logical. Chu Qingyan felt a little apologetic. But in the situation at that time, she had to do this. If Xijing was awake, she would have done the same. The reason why I didn't tell you was very simple. At that time, Xijing was seriously injured. You weren't there at that time. Otherwise, you would have been heartbroken. Even the divine doctor can't guarantee that he can snatch her away from Hades' Lord. It would be good if she could be saved, but if she couldn't. So it was useless to tell you. I was afraid that I would give you hope. If that hope was destroyed, it would only be a second, heavier blow to you. Xiao understood what she meant. After a year, little rascal was finally out of danger. It was easy to imagine how serious her injuries were. As long as she's alive, it's fine. As long as she's alive, it's worth it no matter how much torture I suffer. I'll take it as atonement. All of this was his own fault. If he hadn't set up a trap, if he hadn't insisted on revenge, if he hadn't unintentionally involved her, none of this would have happened. She wouldn't have suffered so much. Chapter 15-17. Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan looked at Xiao's heartfelt expression and sighed with emotion. Xiao raised his head and looked at her with reddened eyes. Sister-in-law, can you tell me where she is now? Upon hearing this, Chu Qingyan revealed a troubled expression. I don't know either. Xijing's injuries were too severe, and Yanluo sent her to a place that was recorded in the medical books, where ordinary people would not be able to find her. Every time, we could only wait for news from them. Xiao was stunned, then smiled bitterly. But he really missed her. Third brother, as long as Xijing recovers, she'll come back. Chu Qingyan comforted him. Thank you, sister-in-law. Xiao smiled bitterly. He already knew what he wanted to know. He didn't want to disturb sister-in-law's rest, so he solemnly bowed to her and left the palace. Little rascal was still alive. She was living well somewhere in this world. He felt relieved, and the prison in his heart was opened. But he was still panicked and afraid. He was afraid that she would seek freedom and never come back. He was afraid that she would disappear from his life. Xiao felt that he had never been so afraid in his life. There were 8 hardships in life: birth, old age, illness and death, separation, longing, and being unable to let go. He seemed to have tasted each of these 8 hardships. At this moment he stood outside the palace. The road in front of him was clear, but he didn't know where to go. No, he clenched his hands, and a look of determination appeared in his eyes. Little rascal, I'll wait for you here. I'll wait for you to come back. If you don't come back, I'll go find you. I won't give up, no matter where you go. After thinking it through, his floating feet finally landed on solid ground. He led the horse to his second brother's mansion. At this moment, he wanted to drink to his heart's content. Meanwhile, in a certain mystic realm, Yanluo, who had just finished milking the baby and was about to bring it over, suddenly slapped her head. My memory is so bad. I think I haven't told Qingyan about Xijing's pregnancy. It's all because I was in such a hurry this morning. Forget it, I'll tell you next time. I'm still going to deliver food to the baby. If Xiao knew that his little rascal was not only alive, but also had a 3-month-old child, his life would be complete. Unfortunately, there were too many coincidences in this world. But to Xiao, knowing that his lover was still alive was already the best thing that could happen to him. In the past few days, the palace had been very lively, not only because of the little prince's 1-month birthday, but also because of the upcoming wedding of the emperor and empress. No, to be more precise, it was the emperor's wedding and the empress coronation ceremony. Because there were only 2 masters in the palace, the palace maids and eunuchs did not have to do much on normal days. Therefore, at such a critical moment, there was enough manpower. On the other side, more than a dozen palace maids were holding the newly sewn phoenix wedding dress as they majestically walked past. On the other side, more than a dozen eunuchs walked past with jewelry boxes in their hands. The imperial palace, which was usually cold and cheerless, was bustling with activity these days. Everywhere, one could see the silhouettes of people busy with the wedding. Meanwhile, the beloved little prince was being held in Father Chu's arms, hiding from the world. Father Chu felt that the sun was shining brightly, and the flowers were blooming just right. If there were no obstructions at the side, it would be even more pleasing to the eye. "You old man, why do you keep following me?" Father Chu yelled at the person behind him in dissatisfaction. The Emperor Emeritus rolled his eyes. "You scoundrel, this path doesn't belong to your family. Why are you poking your nose into it?" Father Chu sked. "This is my son-in-law's." The Emperor Emeritus humphed. "This is my grandson's." The palace maids serving at the side were so frightened that they trembled. In this world, Father Chu was probably the only person who dared to be so disrespectful to the Emperor Emeritus. However, the Emperor Emeritus did not seem to care about his disrespect at all. The more Father Chu bickered with him, the more he liked to hang around in front of him. Only when Father Chu was so angry that he was speechless would he stomp his feet and vent his temper. "If it weren't for the fact that you saved us back then, your head would have been removed long ago." Although he said that after the Emperor Emeritus's anger subsided, he still liked to play with Father Chu. It seemed that in this world, there was no one who dared to disregard his status and be sincere friends with him. At this moment, the 2 of them were chattering back and forth. As they walked, they almost bumped into someone. Father Chu turned his head. Wasn't this the charlatan that Kai Kai had mentioned? Thus, Father Chu didn't care about anything else and stuffed his grandson into his arms, then pulled the Emperor Emeritus to the side. "Let's have a fight?" The Emperor Emeritus rolled up his sleeves. "Come, who's afraid of who?" Thus, the 2 of them began to fight on the path, completely ignoring the palace maid's advice. However, before Su Jian could finish his umitba, a soft little child appeared in his arms and smiled at him. For the first time in his life, the calm and composed divine monk Su Jian was stunned. "Yeah. It was Nkong who looked at him and danced with laughter that pulled him back to reality. He hurriedly raised his hands to hold down the child's short arms, afraid that he would fall over if he struggled. However, the little child seemed to understand his thoughts and stopped moving. Instead, he looked straight at him and smiled. His large eyes were as bright as the moon, and his voice was like a clear spring. His skin was fair, his eyes were big, and his lips were pouty. Even as an outsider, Su Jian couldn't help but like him. A few palace maids were standing nearby, but because of their status, they didn't dare to ask him for the little prince. Su Jian also knew that this was the best time to return the child to them, but for some reason, after seeing this child and knowing that he was his, he couldn't bear to part with him. From afar, Su Jian glanced at the 2 people who were happily fighting. He walked to a stone table and sat down. He held the little child in his arms and waited quietly. Yeah. The little child continued to speak in a baby language that only he could understand. "Nkong, is it?" "Safe and sound," Su Jian murmured. Then he smiled. You will have a peaceful and happy life. Your future will be limitless, and you will become a dragon among men." This sentence sounded like a normal blessing, but the young novice monk beside Su Jian was shocked. He had never heard his master speak so highly of anyone. Many people had spent a lot of money to beg his master for a word of praise, but his master had ignored them all. Moreover, his master had never been so close to a child before. The novice monk had been wondering why his master was suddenly so close to the child. Now that he heard this, he couldn't help but guess that Su Jian was indeed the son of an emperor. This wasn't an ordinary blessing, but a prophecy. To be able to receive such a high prophecy, this child's future was truly limitless. The novice monk was a little envious, but he also wished him well. The future of the son of an emperor also represented the future of the country. At this moment, a voice interrupted them. "Su Jian, I heard from your master that you had a calamity. Have you resolved it? Chapter 15:18. These words came so suddenly that Su Jian was subconsciously stunned. The person who came asked in a low voice, and the person beside him was standing far away, so only the two of them could hear. Because he had lowered his head to tease Kong, the person who came did not see his expression. He paused for a moment, then recovered his usual calmness. He slowly raised his head and looked at the retired emperor, who had a puzzled expression. It's already settled. Hearing this, the retired emperor saw that his expression was normal and was relieved. I remember that your master was still very concerned about this matter. It's good that it's settled now. Su Jian smiled faintly. The retired emperor sat down on the stone chair beside him and stroked his white beard. He seemed to have suddenly thought of something and asked, "That's right, it's all thanks to you coming down the mountain this time. Otherwise, who knows how much that little girl would have suffered? I just don't know why you suddenly came out of the mountain." Su Jian still looked calm and indifferent. This humble monk and Qingyan are fated. She's a kind girl. The retired emperor did not seem surprised at this answer at all. Instead, he looked at him deeply. At this moment, Kong grabbed his finger and rubbed it against his face, smiling happily. Su Jian bent his finger and gently tapped his cheek, his expression as gentle as water. Buddhists were all nothingness. They had feelings and seemed to be emotionless. They had seen through life and death, and were neither sad nor happy. However, at this moment, the retired emperor seemed to see a monk who had no desires and stepped into the secular world from the great sage realm. His body was stained with joy and dust. Perhaps a bystander saw it clearly. His turbid eyes, which had seen the vicissitudes of life, revealed a touch of pity. Finally, the retired emperor looked away and landed his gaze on his great-grandson. His eyes were full of love. "Little Kong, you have to thank the person who hugged you. It's all thanks to him that you and your mother can live well." This was because no one knew that if Su Jian's appearance had not changed the course of events, they would not have been so successful. This was also the reason why he suddenly came back. He wanted to see what he could do to help. "Old man, you're actually here. Didn't we agree to fight? How can you run away at the last minute?" A vigorous voice cut in. The corner of the retired emperor's mouth twitched. He grabbed the lapel of the person in front of him and lifted him over. He said resentfully, "Chu Huayuan, don't you know how to respect the old and cherish the young? I'm already so old. Can't you stop making me angry?" Chu Machen's father carefully pried his hand away and retreated to Su Jian's side. He stuck his head out and said, "You're older than me. You should take care of your younger self." The retired emperor suddenly had an impulse to beat someone up. At this moment, Mr. Chu saw that Su Jian was so angry that he was glaring at him. He found it very amusing. He took Kong from Su Jian's arms and said proudly, "You've lost. I'm going to take Kong away." After saying that, Chu Machen's father turned around and flew away using his qinggong. He flew away, flew away. The retired emperor slapped his forehead and felt helpless. This person was really regressing as he lived. Su Jian watched the departing figure from the side. He pinched his fingers together and finally revealed a look of understanding. Old benefactor Chu is truly childlike and interesting. Hearing this, the retired emperor turned to look at him. Then will his life be peaceful and smooth? He will. All the difficulties have passed. Su Jian smiled. Only then did the retired emperor relax. He then asked, "Then how long do you plan to stay here?" Su Jian looked up at the lush green leaves in the distance, his eyes rippling. When it's time to leave. When all her tribulations had passed and all the obstacles had been crossed. The leaves rustled and the breeze was light. His green monk robe brushed against the flowers and grass beside the stone steps as he gradually disappeared into the distance. The smile on the retired emperor's face disappeared. He looked at Su Jian's back and sighed faintly. How could he not know what his tribulations were? It was just that others could not help him resolve them. The word love was neither light nor heavy. However, heroes could not escape from it. Even those who had seen through the mundane world could not escape from it. Forget it, forget it. Young people can solve their own problems. I'd better go tease my little great-grandson. The retired emperor waved his sleeves and walked in the direction that Chu Machen's father had left. After a day, Chu Qingyan received the surprise that her family's big ice cube had prepared for her. Bai Yutong, snowflake cake, and glutinous rice ball had returned to the snow mountains to spend the winter with the Wolf King and Wolf Queen. When they saw their master, they happily pounced on her. Little C, who had returned from organizing the Eagle Army, raised its neck in disdain. These few did not have the slightest bit of the Snow Mountain King's reserve and boldness. They were not like it, so noble and solemn. However, when its master rubbed this one's head, then that one's head, she did not notice it at all. Little C flapped its wings and immediately flew over. Master, you can't be biased. They completely lost their cold and aloof appearance from before. When Hualing, who had come out of the city gates to pick up these mountain kings, saw this scene, he really wanted to gouge out his own eyes. They had clearly been all kinds of unapproachable and unsmiling mountain kings on the way here. How did they turn into cute kittens in front of the little princess consort? Did he open it the wrong way, or did he open it the wrong way? Chu Qingyan finally calmed down these enthusiastic beasts with great difficulty before raising her head to ask Hualing, "Why did you bring them back?" She remembered that it was Big Ice Cube who had sent these beasts away. These beasts had left unwillingly. Hualing said with a smile. Master said, "You haven't seen Bai Yutong and the others for a long time, so you must be missing them." So he had people pick them up. Chu Qingyan nodded. She did not think that Big Ice Cube would be so attentive. She knew the reason why he had sent Bai Yutong and the others away. At that time, tens of thousands of wild beasts had followed them to the capital. After everything was over, if they were allowed to stay, it would affect the people's livelihood. However, she was pregnant, and it was not suitable for her to personally lead them back. So Big Ice Cube had given this heavy responsibility to the four of them. However, it just happened to be winter and they were delayed after winter. When Xiao Su returned, it was already late in the day. He walked to the entrance of the hall, and Hualing came up to greet him. "They're all here?" Xiao Su asked. "Yes, Little Hai and the others are currently in the hall with the little princess consort. Little Master is also here." Hualing replied truthfully. Xiao Su nodded. Actually, he did not like people or things to disturb him, and the little fella's two-person world. However, he was too busy and the little fella was very concerned about these beasts, so he could only have them come back to accompany the little fella as soon as possible. However, when Xiao Su walked in, his little fella was hugging his son and gently coaxing him. The scene was very beautiful. It was a pity that the scene was ruined when a row of beasts squatting around the little fella turned their heads to look at him. Their green eyes were like they were looking at a love rival. "Bai Yutong, someone is coming to steal Little Master from us." "Snowflake cake. That's right. Glutinous rice ball. Little Master is ours." "Little Hai, if you want to steal Little Master, you have to pass through this king first." Xiao Su's eyes twitched. It seemed like he had found some trouble for himself. Chapter 15:19. Time flowed by like water. Perhaps it could be said that happy days always flew by quickly. Soon, it was time for the wedding of the new emperor and empress. The solemn and serene palace was decorated with lanterns and colored banners, filling the air with jubilation. Before the sun had even risen, Chu Qingyan was dragged out of bed. She groggily allowed everyone to dress her up. Only when the heavy phoenix coronet was placed on her head did she truly wake up. At this time, the dressing was nearing the end. She raised her eyes to look at herself in the mirror, and was stunned by her own beauty. She didn't dare to imagine that the woman smiling brightly in the mirror was herself. After Xining inserted the last phoenix hairpin, Wuxia squeezed through the crowd and walked in front of Chu Qingyan. She cupped her face with both hands and acted like a love-struck fool. "Everyone says that the bride is the most beautiful, but I've seen so many brides, and none of them can compare to you. Qingyan, you're the most beautiful bride I've ever seen in my life." Xining nodded heavily and said proudly, "No one can compare to my master." Chu Qingyan covered her mouth and smiled. "You don't have to flatter me. Xiao Xian, when you get married, you'll definitely be the most beautiful bride." Wuxia chuckled and put her hands on her shoulders. She bent down and looked at the two people's faces in the mirror. She sighed with emotion. To be honest, I can't bear to marry you off. Water Spirit, who was tidying up the bride's clothes, stood up and smiled enchantingly. Young Master Hua, don't forget to look at the people around you. Hua Xiao straightened up and snorted. I know. You have so many people. I don't dare to kidnap the bride. These people in the hall were Xiao Su's most powerful subordinates. If she tried to snatch someone from them, she would definitely die if she fought with the king of hell. Pei, it's such a good day, why are you thinking about death? Hua Xiao secretly scolded herself and covered her friend's head with the red veil, but only her face was exposed. She would put it down when the time was right. After retracting her hand, she looked at the jade-like person in front of her and couldn't help but smile. This wedding dress was made by over 100 of the most famous tailors and embroiderers in the country. This phoenix coronet was strung with pearls the size of pearly white teeth. They were the most precious pearls in the Eastern Sea. Every single piece of jewelry on her body was priceless, or even priceless treasures that couldn't be found on the market. Xiao Su seemed to want to take out all the most luxurious and beautiful things in the world to dress up his unique and beautiful bride. From this, it could be seen how deep his affection for his good friend was. Hua Xiaoli was envious and touched. That's strange. The one who should be crying is my mother. Why are your eyes red? Is it because you can't bear to part with me? Chu Qingyan saw that her eyes were red. She was moved, but she couldn't help teasing her. That's right. I have a feeling of having a little sister growing up. You have to be happy. Otherwise, even if I'm a commoner, I will seek justice for you. Hua Xiaoli rubbed her eyes and pretended to be fierce. Water Spirit on the side followed up. Young Master Hua, boss can rest assured. My family's master loves the little princess to the bone. You guys only know how to speak good words for your master. Hua Xiaoli snorted. Chu Qingyan was amused. She held her good friend's hand and patted the back of her hand. Don't worry, he's really good to me. Moreover, I'm not easy to bully, right? Moreover, you're now the richest person in Jiangnan. You might even be in the top 3 in the country. With your identity, you're not just a commoner. So with your support, I have more confidence. Hua Xiaoli obviously knew that no one in this world cared more about her good friend than Xiao Su. However, she was a bit reluctant to part with her, so she said these words. However, Xiao Su was the emperor and her good friend's wealth was not on the surface. She was afraid that outsiders would bully her good friend, who didn't have any relatives to support her. So she emphasized her position. But to be honest, everything she had now was given to her by her good friend. Her good friend's hidden wealth was not any worse than hers. Moreover, her good friend was so smart. She could only bully others and not be bullied. So thinking like this, she was relieved. Good. My Hua family will be your second home. Chu Qingyan's eyes were slightly red. They had already cut ties with the Chu family. In the eyes of outsiders, she only had her parents, weak and easy to bully. It was a pity that she already had great power. If anyone dared to move against them, then she wouldn't be polite. However, her good friend's words still moved her heart. Okay. At this moment, Chu Qingyan's mother walked over with little Nkong in her arms. Chu Qingyan lowered her head and kissed his forehead. She said with a smile, Baby, father and mother are getting married. Nkong clapped his hands and called out, Yeah. The baby's translation came online. Kiss. Chu Qingyan's mother's eyes were filled with tears. Kai, mother sees you getting married. Thinking about how time flies, you used to be around in Kang's age. Now you're an adult and a mother. Mother is old. Chu Qingyan let go of her son's hand and reached out to hug her mother. Her voice was slightly hoarse. Mother isn't old. Mother is still very young. I haven't grown up yet. I'm still young. Chu Qingyan's mother didn't know whether to laugh or cry at her coquettish words. What nonsense are you saying? You're about to get married. All right, mother won't say any more. It's almost time. You should leave the palace. Don't miss the auspicious hour. As Chu Qingyan was getting married directly from the palace, the Ministry of Rites discussed and let the bridal sedan and carriage circle around the city before entering the palace to perform the ceremony. This would also allow the people to admire the future empress's elegance. Thus they had to set off now. At the same time, in an inconspicuous residence in the capital, Consort Yu and Dongting Fan were sitting in the living room and talking. Have you arranged for everyone to leave? Consort Yu asked with a malicious look in her eyes. Dongting Fan watched as his former charming junior sister turned into a vicious woman who lived only for revenge. He felt pity and desolation in his heart, but he still nodded. In an hour, the procession will pass by the East Gate. That's the busiest place. Our men will disguise themselves as commoners and blend into the crowd. When the time comes, even if we can't kill Chu Qingyan and Chu Qingyan, we might be able to disrupt this wedding. Consort Yu smiled coldly. Very good, very good. What 10 miles of wedding? What grand wedding? She was going to turn them into a joke. However, at this moment, a gust of wind blew open the door. Green leaves and petals floated in. The two of them narrowed their eyes from the gust of wind. Who's there? Don't pretend to be mysterious. Dongting Fan obviously noticed that there were people. As he spoke, his hand was already on the weapon at his waist. It's been a long time since we last met. How have you two been? As soon as he finished speaking, a devilishly handsome purple figure leaned against the door frame and spoke leisurely. When Consort Yu saw the person in front of her, her eyes widened. It's you. You didn't die? You didn't die, so how would this young master dare to die? The casual voice suddenly turned cold and dangerous. Chapter 1520. It was time. Xiao Su appeared in the Yansu Palace. He had always been dressed in black. Even when he was wearing a yellow robe on the day of his coronation, he still wore a black imperial robe afterwards. This was the first time that everyone saw him wearing a scarlet robe. His black hair was tied up high, and a golden jade crown was fastened on a jade belt. It shone brightly, making him look luxurious. The collar and cuffs were embroidered with the rarest golden silk. The back was embroidered with peony twining branches. The hem of the robe was also embroidered with the same color, echoing the bride's robe. The silver mask covered his face, revealing his clear black eyes. Because today was a good day, His Majesty was no longer there. There was a bit of joy, a bit of eagerness, and a bit of satisfaction. Just by standing there, he was already a rare scenery in the world of mortals, making people unable to take their eyes off him. People couldn't help but want to take off that layer of mask, as if they wanted to push aside the clouds to see what kind of picture it was. In just a moment, everyone seemed to see thousands of rivers and mountains, among the blue sky and white clouds. However, in the blink of an eye, he had already passed through the crowd and walked in front of the bride. When Xiao Su appeared, Xining and the others hurriedly took off the veil, so he only saw his beloved woman standing there in a fiery red wedding dress. Although he couldn't see her face, it was already a beautiful picture. She stood there quietly with the phoenix coronet and the red veil covering her beautiful face, but he could imagine how beautiful her face was under the veil, and how clear and moving her eyes were. She was like the moon, and her white wrist was like frost and snow. Unknowingly, he was already standing in front of her, restraining his hand from lifting her veil. Chu Qingyan couldn't see in front of her, but when he walked over, she felt him approaching. When feelings were strong to a certain extent, even if they couldn't see each other, they could feel each other as long as they appeared. His boots appeared in her field of vision, which she had sewn with her own hands. Just as she was still wondering if it fit his feet, she heard a voice that sounded close yet far. "Ian, I'm here to pick you up." She was startled. It was as if you had traveled through mountains and rivers, and after 1,000 hardships, you finally reached the other side of the mountain, and there was everything you wished for. "I've been waiting for you." Xiao Su couldn't help but smile as a warm current spread in his heart. It was as if you were shouting at the other side of the mountain, and the other side happened to respond. "I'm sorry for taking so long to pick you up. As long as you come, I'll wait for you no matter how long it takes." Xiao Su held her hand, intertwined their fingers and let her out. Mrs. Chu's eyes reddened as she looked at the beautiful couple. She could finally rest assured that her daughter had met the right man. After exiting the hall, Xiao Su suddenly squatted in front of her. Chu Qingyan obediently wrapped her arms around his neck. She remembered that she used to love jumping on his back and letting him carry her around the courtyard. Now, when she got close to his back again, She still felt like she was being doted on. The maid on the side was shocked when she saw this. "Your Majesty, this is not proper etiquette." Hualing and Water Spirit looked at each other. What was etiquette? Their master didn't care about it at all. On this kind of good day, Xiao was too lazy to waste words with them. He looked at the giant creatures not far away, and then continued forward with his person on his back. The maid wanted to say something, but several snow-white cute creatures suddenly appeared in front of her. They were baring their fangs at her, as if they were saying, "Stupid human, you talk too much." The maid had never seen a snow wolf before. She opened her mouth and fainted from fright. Glutinous rice ball blinked innocently. It had only let out a yawn and hadn't made a move yet, so why did this person faint? Humans really were weak. At this time, its older brothers were calling for it. It turned its head and immediately followed the group. It was its master's royal pet, so how could it be missing from the wedding procession? Although Chu Qingyan couldn't see, her ears were still working. She couldn't help poking his back. "If you let little Hai and the others out, won't it scare the flowers and plants? Why don't I come down?" "Relax, I know what I'm doing. You just need to be my bride today." Xiao pinched her waist, and then continued forward with steady steps. This was his wife. From 6 years ago until now, even in the future, he was willing to pamper her like a child. No one could affect him or stop him. Even if he wasn't the emperor, he could still pamper her like no other. So with the Snow Wolf Eagle King opening the way, everything went smoothly. Whenever there was a ceremonial official that wanted to say a few words, they would be so scared by these powerful mountain kings that they wouldn't dare say a word. The aloof emperor was like a normal man, carefully carrying his bride on his back, looking ordinary and simple. It was hard to imagine that this was the wedding of an emperor and empress. Hua Xioli followed behind. When she saw this, she suddenly had an epiphany. Xiao was establishing his wife's prestige. His attitude showed that in his heart, Chu Qingyan was very important. Not only was she the empress of a country, she was also his wife and the one he doted on the most. If anyone wanted to make trouble for her, they would have to go through him first. With the protection of the Wolf Eagle King, if anyone wanted to make trouble, they would have to weigh their own weight. Unknowingly, Chu Qingyan's position was already unshakable. Originally, she was worried that after Xiao became the emperor, he would change. After all men had bad habits. But now, it seemed that she worried too much. So the group of people majestically walked towards the palace gate. "How is this possible? How can your martial arts be above mine?" A shocked voice pierced through, followed by a painful groan. "That's because you stayed in the same place while I kept breaking through. Why? Shouldn't you be on our side? Don't tell me you want to help that slut Chu Qingyan." A shrill female voice hatefully questioned. "This young master is used to doing things as he pleases. What can you do about it?" The bewitching voice slowly spoke with a tone that made people gnash their teeth in hatred. The wind stopped, as if the wind and lightning just now were just an illusion. No one knew what kind of bloody storm that unremarkable little residence had experienced. When Higashio Motetsu walked out, his purple robes were gorgeous and spotless. He lightly flicked his sleeves, sweeping away the petals on them. His cold gaze suddenly recovered its cynical smile. He raised a hand to his forehead, his expression relaxed. "Today's weather is really good, Master." Xuanqi Zima walked out from the shadows. His face, which used to be childish, was now resolute, as if he had matured a lot. "Let's go to the east gate." The little girl was about to get married. No matter what, he had to escort her. Yes. When the wind blew, they had already disappeared, leaving behind a field of bright-colored petals and spiraling leaves. Chapter 1521. Since ancient times, when an emperor and empress got married, there would be a huge commotion and the entire country would celebrate. But it was rare to see a civil wedding like this, because there had never been an empress who got married from the palace, and there had never been an emperor who got married from the palace. If these two things were separated, it wouldn't be shocking. But when these two things were put together, no one wouldn't be surprised. What kind of honor was that? What kind of scene was that? This kind of wedding was indirectly announcing to the world how loving the emperor and empress were, and how much the new empress was favored. Moreover, this wedding was so close to the people, so close to the people. This was the first time the people saw the new emperor go out, sitting on a white horse so handsome, and behind him was the new empress's flower carriage. To be able to admire the emperor and empress's beauty, they would have no regrets in life. 10 miles of red dowry, one carriage after another of the dowry. That side had left the city, but they hadn't seen the end yet. There were peach branches on both sides of the road, and the lush peach trees were full of buds, blooming with bright pink flowers. It was clearly past the season of peach blossoms, but they could still see such a wonderful scene, which made the people who came out to watch this grand wedding very surprised. You don't know, right? I heard that His Majesty ordered people to pluck the peach branches that had just formed buds 2 months ago, and then put them in the ice cellar to freeze them. Now he took them out, just to complete the sentence of, "I'll give you 10 miles of peach blossoms." No wonder I felt that the peach blossoms were emitting an icy aura, chasing away a lot of the heat. His Majesty is indeed worthy of being able to think of this kind of method. The new emperor is so considerate and devoted to his wife. It seems like it's the good fortune of us citizens. If he could be so attentive to a small family, there was no need to talk about how he treated the country. The new emperor's character was even more confirmed at this moment. Chu Qingyan sat in the flower carriage, and was attracted by the sounds of exclamations and envy. "What's going on?" she asked in confusion. Xining and Jasper sat on both sides of the shaft. Hearing her words, Xining immediately said, "Master, His Majesty has planted peach branches all the way for you. Those peach blossoms are so beautiful, as if it's spring again. His Majesty treats you so well." Xining had become a lot more mature in the past few years, and had seen a lot of the world. At this time, it was obvious how grand the scene was for her to sigh like this. Chu Qingyan was a little curious and couldn't help but want to lift the veil. She rolled her eyes and ordered, "Put down the veil." Jasper Xining immediately did as she was told. As soon as the gauze curtain was put down, the people outside couldn't see inside, but the people inside could see everything outside. Therefore, when Chu Qingyan lifted the red veil, his eyes were filled with pink and tender. The peach blossoms on the side of the road were burning with red, bright and beautiful. Who wouldn't look over? She stared blankly at the clusters of deep red and light red that streaked across her eyes. Her heart seemed to swell, and it was about to swell in her chest. That was just a joke. He actually remembered it until now and even prepared this peach blossom banquet for her. Her bright and beautiful eyes gradually became moist. Even if the two had been together for so long, already had a child, and knew about each other's feelings, she still couldn't help but feel her heart palpitate. Who said that love would become familial after a long time, and the passion of the beginning would return to calmness? That was just an excuse because the love wasn't deep enough. She had been with the big ice cube for so many years, but she never felt that the two of them had become a pool of calm water without any waves. Every word he said was still moving. Every action he made still warmed her heart. The joy of seeing at first sight and not getting tired of it for a long time was the true love of a lifetime. She raised her head and her gaze fell on the red figure in front of her. A smile slowly filled her eyes. The peach blossoms are bright and beautiful. The son of Yugue is suitable for his wife. The peach blossoms are bright and beautiful. The son of Yugue is suitable for his wife. Run away without a trace, Yizhenjin. The son of Yugue is suitable for his wife. She finally understood the mood of the bride in the Book of Songs. It turned out that after experiencing the situation, the heart was so happy. The thought of wanting to be with this person for a lifetime surged strongly in her heart. On the east gate of the city, a figure stood there. His purple robes fluttered, luxurious and charming. He looked into the distance and saw the guards of honor majestically coming from afar. Firecrackers sounded, gongs and drums resounded, and petals danced in the air. The guards in front were the most elite troops of Xiao cavalry. On both sides of the road, there was a guard every 5 steps and a team every 10 steps. The degree of meticulousness was simply amazing. It could be seen that Xiao Su didn't allow any mistakes. Higashio Motetsu laughed lowly. It seemed that this time he didn't need to appear. His father and consort used plan wouldn't succeed. He just smiled and smiled. The shallow desire in his phoenix eyes gradually melted, because the flower carriage had already entered his field of vision. The red gauze curtain was indistinct. He couldn't see the figure inside, but with just a glance, he could imagine how happy the person sitting inside was at this time. Little girl, to be able to see your happiness with my own eyes is really very good. I didn't rush all the way in vain. That day, I heard your cries. But I couldn't respond, and I couldn't respond. If I can't protect you, then I won't become your burden. I didn't expect that heaven would take pity on me and not take my life. Perhaps it's just as you said, good people don't live long, scourges live for 1,000 years. But this is also good. At least I can send you off. He picked up the bamboo flute hanging at his waist, put it to his lips, and gently blew it. The crisp sound of the flute with lingering blessings fell into the wind, and jumped into the lively sound of gongs, drums and fireworks. The first time we met, I held you hostage in the King of England's mansion. When we met again, you still fell into my hands. Time and time again, we stood on opposite sides each time, so much so that we missed each other again and again. However, your cunning, quick-wittedness, and bright kindness left ripples in the lake of my heart, but I didn't realize it at all. When I understood the feelings in my heart, your heart already belonged to someone else. I wanted to stay by your side as a friend, but I didn't want to sink deeper and deeper. When you only had Xiao Su's figure in your eyes, I knew that no matter what, I could no longer stand by your side calmly. You were the sun and the moon in the sky. You used the warm light to illuminate the darkness in my heart. You used the gentle shadow to bring me the magnificent scenery. It was you who taught me to love and be loved. You are the warmth that I can't forget in my life. Maybe we are not fated in this life, but it doesn't hinder my feelings for you. You once said that liking someone is your own matter. It has nothing to do with others. It has nothing to do with spring flowers and autumn moon. Then let me alone, in the wind, flowers, snow, and moon. Watch the flowers bloom and fall alone. My little girl, I wish you a happy life, a life without worries. The sound of the flute was clear and gentle. The starlight in the phoenix eyes was fine, indescribable affection, endless wishes. Chapter 15:22. The melodious sound of the flute seemed to be incompatible with the noise of the firecrackers, but it also seemed to resonate with them. The sound of the flute penetrated the sea of people and floated into the carriage. Sitting in the carriage, Chu Qingyan was suddenly stunned. Then her eyes widened in disbelief and quickly turned red. She had heard this song before. Dongting, is that you? It must be you. I knew it. You're still alive. You're still alive. That's great. You're still here. If today wasn't different from the past, she would have flown out following the sound of the flute. She raised her hand to cover her mouth, her eyes filled with warmth. At that time, she had searched the entire mountain, but she couldn't find any trace of him. Those parting words, word by word, were like the last words of someone who was about to die, leaving an indelible mark in her memory. Now she finally had something to worry about. Since he was able to appear here, it proved that he was safe and sound. It turned out that the heavens weren't so heartless, taking away Xiao Ran and leaving him behind. She could finally feel relieved. Xining and Jasper didn't know why their master suddenly became emotional and tried to calm down, but they could feel the joy and surprise emitted from their master. The two looked at each other. Xining revealed a blank expression, but Jasper's internal strength was strong. So she caught the sound of the flute coming with the wind. She thought, could it be related to this sound? Xiao Su, who was sitting on the white horse, slightly raised his eyebrows. At this time, Turin quickly walked to his side and whispered a few words. His cold eyes revealed a clear smile. So it was the return of an old friend. The corners of his mouth rose, containing a smile. Like this, the little fellow could be completely relieved. The long line went around the entire capital and finally headed towards the imperial palace. Hey, they're too far away, you can't see them. A pretty voice sounded in his ear. Higashio Motetsu put down the flute. He didn't turn around, but slowly put away the flute. Why are you here? The pretty voice sounded behind him again. You're running out before you've fully recovered. If you were to die halfway through, How could you live up to my reputation as the medical devil's direct disciple? Retracting his gaze from the end of the road, Higashio Motetsu still said casually, I know my own body. You don't have to worry about it. The owner of the voice crossed his arms and sneered. I saved you with great difficulty, and this is how you treat your savior? To think that you are the master of the Moon Palace. Higashio Motetsu chuckled coldly. Then what do you want? Money? Just say the word. The Moon Palace will definitely satisfy you. That pretty girl was so angry that she couldn't say anything. In the end, she took a few deep breaths and spat out the turbid air in her heart. This person just wouldn't stop until she was shocked to death. He always wanted to anger her half to death. Go back. This place isn't suitable for you. Higashio Motetsu turned around, intending to walk past her. However, at this moment, the pretty girl grabbed his hand. Her large eyes blinked as she moved closer to him. She said in an extremely innocent voice, Forget about money. How about you repay me with your body? This lady has calculated with her fingers that you lack a wife in your life. Why don't you submit to this lady? Higashio Motetsu raised his eyebrows. He raised a finger and tapped her forehead. Then he pushed her away with a bit of force. He said in a teasing tone, You're still young, but your tone is quite big. You should go home and read a few more medical books. The outside world is very dangerous. It's not suitable for a little girl like you. After saying this, he directly walked past her, not even giving her a second glance. The girl was rejected, but she wasn't sad at all. In any case, this wasn't the first time. However, she was still so angry that she stomped her feet. How many times have I told you? I'm not young anymore. I'm as old as that Miss Chu you care about. However, that person had already stepped lightly on the roof and quickly disappeared into the distance. He didn't hear what she said at all, or perhaps he didn't care at all. The girl pursed her lips, but she wasn't discouraged. The road to pursuing her husband was very long. She couldn't fall halfway. Miser, wait for me. As she shouted, the girl quickly chased after him. Who said that there was only one scenery in your world? If you missed it, it wouldn't appear again? That was because the heavens wanted you to miss something that didn't belong to you. However, the things that belonged to you, no matter how early or late, would come. This was what it meant to be fated. In the highest palace in the imperial palace, Xiao held his wife's hand as they stood on the steps. They were wearing red silk, and each of them held one end of the other. At the head of the table sat the retired emperor, and on his left and right sat father and mother Chu. Originally, the Chu couple didn't have the right to sit at the head of the table, but because of the new emperor's golden mouth, the people from the Ministry of Rights could only shut their mouths. First, bow to heaven and earth. Thank the heavens for letting us meet. Second, bow to the parents. Thank the parents for raising him. Husband and wife, bow to each other. You and I, husband and wife, are of one heart, weathering the trials and hardships together. The ceremony is complete. The ceremonial official's last sentence didn't mean the end of the wedding, because next was the coronation of the empress, and then she would receive the worship of the officials and the kneeling of the people. Xiao raised his hand and lifted the veil, revealing a delicate and beautiful face. In an instant, the world lost its color. His eyes moved, and thousands of words of praise were stuck in his throat. In the end, only one sentence remained. Ayan, you're so beautiful today. Chu Qingyan smiled shyly. Am I only beautiful today? Xiao held her hand and said affectionately, No, you've always been the most beautiful in my heart. The ceremonial official and the ministers standing nearby felt like they had been fed a mouthful of dog food. Bai Yutong, who were squatting on both sides like flower pets, rolled their eyes. Get used to it, there's no need to make a fuss. Xiao Ho and Xiao Yao, as younger brothers, were entrusted with an important task. At this time they were so busy that their feet didn't touch the ground. Seeing this pair of dazzling beauties, Xiao Yao said with a bad taste, Brother, you said that we were working hard here, but Imperial Brother got the beauty back. Xiao Ho smiled. Second brother, are you envious? Xiao Yao seemed to have his tail stepped on. Who said I'm envious? Which eye of yours saw me envious? He hadn't played enough yet. He didn't want to be tied down at such a young age. But seeing such a cold person like his imperial brother reveal a sincere smile, he actually felt a little moved. What was love like in this world? Would it really change people's appearance? He didn't understand. Xiao looked at his angry brother and shook his head. At this time he heard him ask, "What about you? Are you envious?" Xiao was slightly startled, and then slowly nodded. "I'm envious. To win the heart of one's heart, to never leave one's side." He really wanted to tell this to little rascal, to let her hear his thoughts. He really wanted to give her a big wedding, to make her the most beautiful bride, to hold her hand, and then grow old with her. But little rascal, when will you come back? Chapter 15:23. Xiao Yao saw his brother's dejected expression, and couldn't help but recall how his third brother had suddenly barged into his residence to drink. In the end he had gotten drunk, crying and laughing at the same time. It seemed that love was a subject that was even more difficult to understand than poetry. Today, you can bask in Imperial Brother's glory. Perhaps one day, the one in your heart will return. Xiao Yao patted his shoulder and comforted him. Then I'll be counting on second brother's auspicious words. Xiao put away his dejected expression. Since he had already made up his mind to wait, there was no need to be sad. He believed that little rascal would return to his side one day. At this time, the eunuch had already begun reading the imperial edict. The Chu clan has a daughter. She is gentle and virtuous, elegant and dignified, and has a soft nature. Thus, she is conferred the title of Empress, the mother of the world. Chu Qingyan stepped forward to receive the edict, while the civil and military officials behind her knelt down to pay their respects. This subject greets the Empress. Long live the Empress. Their voices were deafening, echoing both inside and outside the palace. Rise. Chu Qingyan turned around to face the officials. She raised her hand slightly, her phoenix eyes filled with power. Thank you, Empress. When everyone rose, Su Jian, dressed in a kasaya, appeared on the high platform. Normally, everyone was used to seeing him dressed in green and plain robes. Now that he was dressed so solemnly, everyone couldn't help but hold their breaths and look at him with respect. At this time, Chu Qingyan was only 3 or 4 people away from him. She didn't understand why he would appear here, so she looked in confusion at the large block of ice beside her. Xiao Su, on the other hand, patted the back of her hand, indicating for her to calm down. Chu Qingyan wasn't the only one surprised by Su Jian's appearance. The civil and military officials were also confused. After all, Buddhist disciples did not participate in the secular world. However, this was the wedding of the emperor and empress, so the appearance of a holy monk seemed very reasonable. At this time, Su Jian put his palms together and warmly said to Xiao Su and Chu Qingyan, "This humble monk represents the 100-some monks of Hugua Temple in expressing our sincere blessings to His Majesty and Empress. His Majesty is diligent and loves the people, and Empress is gentle and virtuous. Sichuan has such a ruler is the greatest fortune of 100 years. In the future, Sichuan will prosper and the country prosper, and its people live in peace." Before Chu Qingyan could even react, the civil and military officials below were all extremely agitated as they hurriedly knelt down. Long live His Majesty! Long live the Empress! Who was Su Jian? The world's most famous, the world's prophecy? Every word he said was the truth. Who would dare to not believe him? Originally, there had been some people who had been dissatisfied with Chu Qingyan because of the previous rumors, but after seeing her devastatingly beautiful appearance, they developed a prejudice against her. They thought that she was truly an enchantress who would bring disaster to the country, but they didn't dare show it because of the deterrence of the new emperor. Now that they heard Su Jian's words, they completely dispelled their prejudices against Chu Qingyan. So the empress wasn't Sichuan's scourge, but a benefactor. Then they had to worship her and serve her well. They couldn't neglect her. Chu Qingyan looked at Su Jian in disbelief. She felt that he was more dignified than ever before. She didn't know if it was because of this occasion. At this time, Su Jian looked over and met her eyes. He smiled softly, and his emotionless eyes flashed with a faint light. Then he bowed to her and Xiao Su and chanted Umitba before withdrawing with the novice monks. Chu Qingyan looked at his back and felt a wave of gratitude. She could clearly feel the change in the attitude of the civil and military officials toward her. Before it had been respect due to her status, but now it was respect. It was just a difference of one word, but the treatment was completely different. At this time, the sound of the fireworks pulled her attention back. At this time, she should be returning to the palace with the matron of honor, while her big ice cube stayed behind to entertain the officials and guests. But at this time, Xiao took her hand and walked forward a few steps. He raised his hand to indicate for everyone to be silent. The people present didn't know what he wanted to do. They all fell silent and raised their heads to look at the beautiful couple on the high stage. Chu Qingyan felt those large hands tightly grip her, and couldn't help but turn her head slightly to look at him. His features were exquisite, and his temperament was as cold as the white snow of a high mountain. But she knew how hot his hands were. Xiao's thin lips opened slightly, but his words were powerful. Zhen hereby swears that in this life, Zhen will only have one wife, Qingyan of the Chu clan. All the children will be born from her alone. As long as Zhen is on the throne, the harem will never take a concubine. The entire court was shocked. They had never heard of an emperor, who only had an empress and no concubines in the harem. But when they thought of Su Jian's prophecy, which was full of affirmation for this new empress, and the fact that the imperial family already had a little prince, they understood. Since the country would be prosperous and the people would be at peace, there would be a prince. His Majesty could do whatever he wanted. They could wholeheartedly support the little prince. If they felt that there were too few people in the imperial family, and they needed to have more children, then they could reluctantly become old nannies and urge the emperor and empress to have more children. They could even have princes and princesses. Xiao never cared about unimportant people. After saying this, he turned to face his wife. This oath was his promise to the little fellow, and it was to shut the mouths of the officials, so that they wouldn't cause trouble for him and the little fellow in the future. Ian, we will be together forever. I will not let you down. Chu Qingyan seemed to hear thousands of fireworks exploding in her ears. Other than him, there was nothing else in front of her. The husband will be a boulder, and the concubine will be a reed. The reed is as tough as silk, and the boulder is immovable. Her red lips parted slightly as she made the promise of a lifetime. Good. Xiao held her hand tightly, interlocking their fingers and never letting go again. Those who were lucky enough to see this scene later said this to those who were not. This is the grandest wedding I've ever seen in my life. It's also the most well-matched couple I've ever seen. The emperor and empress love each other dearly and are in a high position, but they are able to promise a lifetime. They are worthy of being a role model. When the young men and women of the common people heard about the grand wedding, their hearts were all shaken. The young men basically regarded the new emperor, who was both civil and martial, as their idol. They felt that a 9-foot man should be like the new emperor, loving one person for life, cultivating oneself and managing the family, ruling the country and bringing peace to the world. If they didn't sweep a house, how could they sweep the world? The young women all envied the empress for being able to receive such infatuated treatment from the new emperor. They were even more determined that they should be like the empress when marrying a man who could take responsibility and make a lifetime commitment. It was also because of this that this group of young men sprung up like bamboo shoots after a spring rain in the next few years, gradually replacing the positions of the court officials. Their values were influenced by the new emperor, and became more and more correct. In addition, they only had one wife at home, and their homes were harmonious. Thus it was just as Su Jian had said. Sichuan in the future would be prosperous. Of course, this was all in the future. It was just that from then on, everyone believed in love again. Chapter 1524. After a day, all the procedures had been completed, and all that was left was the banquet and the guests. Chu Qingyan returned to the palace to change out of her wedding dress, and into a phoenix robe and a phoenix coronet. This palace dress was custom-made and matched the wedding dress. It was as dazzling as fire. At the start of the banquet, the emperor and empress sat together at the main seat. The civil and military officials and their family members sat on both sides, congratulating the most honorable couple in the Sichuan. Xiao Yao and Xiao Ho were the first to present their congratulatory gifts. One was a child giving guanyin that he had drawn himself, while the other was a pot of jade lotus flowers. The meaning was self-evident. After the two of them left, a voice suddenly sounded from outside. The envoy from Shang Nation presents his congratulatory gifts. Everyone was surprised. Sichuan and Shang Nation had nothing to do with each other. Why would they send gifts? At this moment, an elegant civil official walked in and bowed. This official is here on the orders of our Princess Qing and Prince Consort to congratulate His Majesty and Empress for 100 years of bliss. As he spoke, the civil official waved his hand, and the subordinates behind him came forward with gift boxes. There was a precious jade ruby, a rare pearl of the Eastern Sea, an exquisite gold and silver tea set, and even a small rattle drum. It was obvious that he had put in a lot of effort. My Prince Consort said that they should have come personally, but something came up at the last minute, so they can only meet next time. In order to make up for not being able to come personally this time, my Prince Consort said that he would gift 10,000 dan of rice as long as His Majesty and Empress raise his little nephew until he is white and chubby. The civil official left after speaking. Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. So much food. Did he want Kong to eat until he was a ball? Why didn't Ling Feng and Qingqing come? She asked the person beside her in a low voice. Xiao Su coughed lightly. He's going to be a father again. Pfft. Wasn't he too good at giving birth? No wonder Big Ice Cube looked like he wanted to say something but stopped himself. Chu Qingyan really wanted to give Ling Feng a thumbs up. But before she could think more, someone else came in. The envoy from Jiang Nation presents his congratulatory gifts. An old man wearing the uniform of the Jiang Kingdom walked in. Behind him was another person holding a gift box. This old subject is here on the orders of the monarch to congratulate His Majesty Sichuan and the Empress on their marriage. At the same time, this old subject would like to thank the Empress for her help in the past. Therefore, this old subject would like to present a congratulatory gift and wish the two of you happiness. As he spoke, the people in the first row behind him opened their gift boxes one by one. They were all expensive and priceless gifts. Because Princess Yao has just given birth to a young princess, she cannot personally come to congratulate you. Therefore, this old subject has been entrusted by Princess Yao and Prince Consort of Tang to send a congratulatory gift. With that, the rest of the gift boxes were opened. From silk and satin to children's dolls, all of them were exquisite and meticulous. Although Chu Qingyan felt that it was a pity that these friends could not personally witness her happiness, she was also very happy to know that they were living such a happy life now. After thanking the envoys from the two countries one by one, the smile on Chu Qingyan's face did not disappear for a long time. The gifts from these two countries surprised everyone present. They did not expect their empress to have such a wide network of connections. To be more precise, everyone thought that this Empress Chu did not have any family background. Now that they saw it, it was simply too dazzling, okay? Her friends were all over the other countries, and they were all people of high status and power. Their Majesty really married a shining treasure. In the future, who would dare to offend the Empress? It was simply courting death, okay? However, just when everyone thought that the matter was over, someone sang again. The Hua family of Jiangnan sends a congratulatory gift. The Hua family of Jiangnan? Could it be the Hua family of Sichuan's richest family? Hua Xiao appeared in front of everyone in a gorgeous male outfit. It was different from the female outfit today. She had a different style. She represented her good friend's family, okay? She could not lose face. Now that Xixian had many things to do, it was the time when they needed money. The moment Hua Xiao made a move, he directly sent real gold and silver. 3 million taels of silver. The entire main hall instantly shook 3 times. Hua Xiao was the young master of the Hua family, the future heir. Her words and actions represented the entire Hua family. She directly said that it was a congratulatory gift for the Empress. It went without saying that she was on the Empress's side. In the future, who would dare to say that the Empress had no money and no power? She could slap people in the face anytime, okay? Chu Qingyan was very surprised that her good friend would send such a large gift. At this time, Her good friend winked at her, as if to say, "This is your money." In the past few years, the business of the continuation products had been getting better and better. It had already expanded to the neighboring countries and made a lot of money, so it could be said that this was all her money. Xiao did not dawdle, and turned to sit. She did not want to delay the gift-giving segment. Moon Palace sends a gift. Lawn Manor sends a gift. The next two people were completely out of Chu Qingyan's expectations. The person beside her sat like a clock, as if he was not surprised at all. It seemed that he already knew. Shan Guang came from Lan Zhuang, and he brought 10,000 horses. This gift was simply too considerate. After the great battles last year, the soldiers and horses had suffered heavy losses. Now was the perfect time to replenish their supplies. Xuanqi Zimo, who had come from the Moon Palace, also gave his blessings and handed over a gift box. However, he didn't open it. Chu Qingyan really wanted to ask where his master was, but because of the occasion, she could only keep it to herself. In a short while, the gifts received by the Emperor and Empress were enough to match 10 years of the Sichuan treasury's income. Everyone present looked at Chu Qingyan, as if they were looking at Bulin's money tree. She was simply attracting wealth and treasures. No wonder Master Su Jian gave such a high evaluation. It turned out that the new Empress's connections were not only in other countries, but also among the common people and the pugilistic world. Your Majesty, do you still need a leg hanger? The kind that can act cute. Chu Qingyan looked at everyone's sparkling eyes. She tilted her head and asked the person beside her, "Does that mean that no one will stop me from walking sideways in the future?" Xiao Su looked at her with a faint smile. "With me here, who dares to stop you?" It was like she had drunk a mouthful of honey. Her mouth was filled with sweetness, but she still raised her brows and teased. "Then what if you bully me?" "How could I bully you? I can't even wait to pamper and love you. Moreover, you have so many people backing you up. This is what I should be worried about." Xiao Su held her hand, his fingers gently caressing it. His tender affection was evident in his words. Chu Qingyan snickered. "Don't worry, I won't casually bully you." Xiao Su's eyes brightened slightly. He smiled slyly at her. "I don't mind if you bully me. For example, tonight's wedding night." Chu Qingyan's face instantly turned red. How could this person say such indecent things in such a serious manner? "There are so many people here. Restrain yourself. So what you're saying is that when we go back and there's no one around, I can do whatever I want. So shameless. Can I go back on my word? Can I return it? This item has been sold. It's non-refundable. So shameless." The night of spring was unbearable. The red candles burned out and turned into red waves. This feeling lingered until dawn. Life and death contract. We'll make a promise. Holding your hand. We'll grow old together. As long as you're willing to wait, the happiness you want will come. Chapter 1525. The Emperor and Empress wedding, amnesty for the world. The whole country celebrated, and all the people rejoiced. The palace was still decorated with lanterns and colored banners. The red silk had not been removed, and the lanterns were bright red. Looking around, it was like walking into a sea of red. Xiao Su was excused from court for 3 days, and he was deeply affectionate with his empress. From time to time, he would throw out dog food, and everyone would protest. As for the female pig trotter, Chu Qingyan, she felt both pain and joy in making this public display of affection. Because her big ice cube's possessiveness was really too strong, and because he had been unable to get close to her for the past few months, and because she had given birth to Kong Kong, all her thoughts were on Kong Kong. He didn't show it on the surface, but he always remembered it in his heart. This time, Kong Kong was taken away by his mother, leaving them a chance to be alone. How could he not grasp such a good opportunity? Thus, she fell asleep on the bed, woke up on the bed, and ate on the bed. She finally couldn't take it anymore. "Big Ice Cube, I'm hungry. Did I not feed you enough?" "Not that, I want to eat." "Ian, you're thinking the wrong way. I'm talking about eating." She was speechless. "Then why did you throw yourself at me again?" The indescribable part passed. "I'm really hungry. I'll eat by myself." "Be good, I'll feed you." "I can drink the soup myself, I don't need you to feed me." Ew. In the end, it evolved into an indescribable part. I'm going to take a bath. Be good, I'll hug you. In the end, it evolved into an indescribable part. I'm sleepy, I want to sleep. Okay, I'll accompany you. In the end, it evolved into an indescribable part. It was extremely lingering, as if to make up for these past few months. In the end, she laid in his arms, and no longer had the strength to push his face away. Big Ice Cube, I really wonder if I'll really become an evil concubine who brings disaster to the country if this continues. TSK, from now on, the emperor won't go to court. After Xiao Su stole a kiss, he chuckled softly. His laughter vibrated in her ears. She thought spinelessly, how could it be so devilish and so pleasant to the ears? Now that you've bribed the entire imperial court, do you think they dare to say anything? And even if I don't attend court, what do you think they would dare to say? Xiao Su propped up his chin and stroked her black hair with one hand. His smile was elegant and his tone was doting, as if he didn't take this seriously at all. Chu Qingyan covered her face with her hands. Oh no, she was really going to become a demon concubine. How could he say something like that? Seeing that the little fellow really believed him, Xiao Su was happy. He pinched her face, then lifted her chin and leaned over to kiss her. I still have the energy to let my imagination run wild. This proves that I'm not working hard enough. Again? The corners of her mouth twitched, and she really wanted to shrink back. But just as she raised her head and was about to say something, she saw his impeccable face. His skin, which was usually as white as snow, was now dyed with a light pink color. It was extremely attractive, and his pair of eyes, which were usually calm and composed, were now burning with two small flames, as if they were about to ignite her. His half-open shirt revealed his strong chest. Only then did she realize where her line of sight had landed. She hurriedly tried to look away, but the heat had already closed in, leaving her with nowhere to retreat. Ian, the night of spring is too short. We can't waste it. With that, the clothes she had just put on disappeared once again. When her consciousness was finally submerged by the waves, a sentence flashed through her mind. She again fell for the handsome man's trick. When you're with the person you love, even if you miss a glance, you'll think it's a waste. When I'm with you, nothing I do is enough. Like glue, looking into each other's eyes, it was like seeing a flourishing peach blossom. The sun was high in the sky. The sunlight shone through the window and onto the ground. A gentle breeze blew, and the shadows of the trees danced. It only made people feel lazy, and they really wanted to continue sleeping like this. However, Chu Qingyan still woke up. Although her whole body was sore, as if she had been crushed once. Every time she moved, she couldn't help but feel sore. This was because she didn't feel the aura of the big ice cube. Turning her head, the pillow was already empty. She blinked a few times, and after adjusting to the light, she slowly got up. There was no need to describe the feeling. She was soft and powerless. She held her forehead. These past few days, she had been in a drunken stupor. She didn't even know what day it was. When the people outside heard the movement inside, they pushed the door open and came in. Master, you're awake? Xining asked in a crisp voice. The people who came in were Xining and Jasper, followed by a few palace maids who were carrying water. And where's His Majesty? His Majesty went to the morning court. Before he left, he told us not to wake you up and let you sleep until you wake up naturally. Xining held back her laughter. Master and His Majesty had been together every day. In just a short while, Master already missed His Majesty. It could be seen how good their relationship was. Chu Qingyan heard the teasing in Xining's words and her cheeks couldn't help but turn red. But what made her happy was that the big ice cube still knew to go to the morning court. She finally didn't have to worry about people calling her a demon concubine. After getting out of bed and washing up, Chu Qingyan planned to visit her son who had been pushed away by the big ice cube. However, before she could leave the hall, Jin Xian came in with a small box. Master Su Jian asked this subordinate to bring this to you. Jin Xian walked in front of her and presented it with both hands. Chu Qingyan was no longer surprised. These good friends seemed to have discussed it beforehand. Each of them had prepared a gift, and each of them made her feel that it was too precious. It was just that most of them couldn't thank her in person. Although the big ice cube had sent invitations, they were all busy and couldn't be present. This made her feel a little regretful. She opened the box and asked, "Where is he?" "Master Su Jian left 3 days ago," Jin Xian replied. At this moment, Chu Qingyan had just opened the box to see what was inside. She was stunned by Jin Xian's words. "Left?" "Yes, on the night of Master's wedding." In such a hurry. She was a little disappointed as she carefully picked up the Buddhist beads. The reddish-brown color looked no different from ordinary Buddhist beads, but when she held it in her hand, the warmth of the whole body and the simple aura that hit her in the face seemed to say that this bracelet was very precious. Did he leave any other words? Master Su Jian said that this farewell may be many years. He hopes that you will take care. That's really his character. Every time he helped someone, he would disappear without a trace. On Mount Feng, inside the Hugua Temple, Su Jian was still wearing his green monk robes. At this moment he was standing under the Bodhi tree. His sleeves fluttered in the absence of wind, and the morning dew on his body had already been evaporated by the sunlight. God knew how long he had been standing there. "Buddha, I failed to overcome my tribulation. I entered the mortal world and broke my precepts. I am willing to go into seclusion again, and never come out of the mountain in this life." That woman had entered his dreams and fulfilled his heart of great love. The mortal world was like a dream. Although he failed to overcome the tribulation, he had no regrets. He put his palms together and looked in the direction of the imperial palace. His eyes revealed a faint smile. Then he turned and slowly left. A lotus bloomed with each step, and a Bodhi tree appeared with each step. Chapter 1526. After putting away the prayer beads, Chu Qingyan seemed to have thought of something. She said to Jasper, "Bring over the box sent by the Moon Palace for me to see." Jasper obeyed. Not long after, she came back with a box. The box was made of green jade, and was a bit heavy. Chu Qingyan raised her hand to open it. There was no complicated gift, only a jade flute lying there. It was green all over, like an indomitable bamboo, which was very different from his personality. She thought that with his personality, he would give her something popular, but she never thought that it would be so elegant. But thinking of the bone whistle in the past, she couldn't help laughing softly. Xiao always did things that people didn't expect. She reached out and took it out. The cold touch in this somewhat hot weather made her feel refreshed. Thinking about it, the flute sound she heard on the day of her wedding came from this flute. "Dongting, ah Dongting, do you not plan on seeing me?" Stroking the flute, the smile on her lips faded and she felt a bit disappointed. "Xiao Ran is not here, Su Jian is gone, you don't want to see me?" "Master, what are you saying?" Xining tilted her head and asked in confusion. Jin Xian standing on the side suddenly looked up. "Master, do you need this subordinate to send someone to find young Master Dongting?" Chu Qingyan sighed softly, "No need." She believed that he had his own reasons for not appearing. Let's go see Kong Kong." She carefully put down the flute, and ordered someone to put it away before stepping out of the palace. Yansu Palace and Inran Palace were only separated by a small garden, so the group didn't walk far before arriving. The moment they stepped into Inran Palace, they bumped into Hualing, who had a bitter face. "Why are you here? Where's father and Nkong?" Replying to the little empress, the old man took the little prince and sneaked out through the window. This subordinate is going to look for them. Chu Qingyan found it funny. Father seemed to like playing hide and seek with Hualing recently. "Where's my mother?" "The old madam is resting." "Then let's not disturb her anymore. Let's go look for her together." "Yes." Chu Qingyan had just taken 2 steps when she received news that her father and imperial grandfather had encountered each other in the imperial garden. They were having a great time fighting, so the group of people immediately headed towards the imperial garden. Although she had heard of her father and imperial grandfather's battle of wits and courage many times, this was the first time she had witnessed it. Just as she arrived, a shower of petals fell from the sky, showering her with a rain of petals. "Yo, Kai Kai is here. Hi, granddaughter-in-law." Just as she shook off the petals on her body, she heard 2 voices above her head. She looked up and saw two old urchins standing on top of a tree, facing each other. What are you two doing? The ground was covered with withered flowers and withered leaves. A corner of the entire imperial garden had been destroyed. Fortunately, Big Ice Cube was not a flower lover. Otherwise he would be heartbroken. We're competing in willpower. Retired Emperor took the time to reply to her. How do we compete? Her face was full of question marks. Let's see who blinks first. Mr. Chu chuckled. Chu Qingyan facepalmed. Were they so bored that they had nothing better to do? That's right, granddaughter-in-law. Kong Kong is by the wall in front. Go and take care of him. It will be difficult to determine the winner. Chu Qingyan did not have the time to facepalm. She shook her head and led the others over. Did they just abandon her son like that? What happened to the treasure that they were going to fight over? Just as they passed through the arched door, Chu Qingyan suddenly stopped in her tracks and stared in front of her in disbelief. Jasper, who was following behind her, could not see the arched door in front of them. She immediately asked, Master? Chu Qingyan returned to her senses and immediately raised her hand. All of you back down. Without my orders, do not come near here. Although they did not know why their master had suddenly given such an order, Jasper, Xining, Jean Xian, and the others still obeyed and retreated. When they were far away, Chu Qingyan stared ahead. It felt like a while had passed, but it also felt like a century had passed. She blinked away the tears at the corners of her eyes before she lifted her feet and walked towards the figure in front of her. Higashio Motetsu was half-squatting and was completely focused on playing with the child in the cradle. He was completely unaware that someone was approaching. At this moment he was still thinking that this was indeed the little lass's child. Although Xiaosu's blood flowed in his body, he was still very likable. Today he had only wanted to sneak a peek at the little lass before returning to the Moon Palace to deal with the matters at the Moon Palace. However, he had not expected to see her child the moment he entered the Imperial Garden. Out of curiosity, he had stayed behind. He had not expected to be attracted by this obedient and adorable child. Just as he was playing with Nkang's fingers, a dissatisfied and familiar voice sounded behind him. Sneaking in without even looking at me. Are you planning to leave without a word again? Dong. Ting. Wang. You. Higashio Motetsu's body stiffened. Oh no, he had been caught red-handed. Haha, aren't I here now? He turned around and smiled ingratiatingly at the person who had just arrived. When Chu Qingyan saw his pretentious smile, she couldn't help but say in disdain, Put away that reluctant fake smile of yours. It's an eyesore. Higashio Motetsu knew that she was being awkward. The corners of his lips curled up into a devilish smile. I say, little lass, you've been hanging out with Xiaosu for too long recently. Your temper has grown. I even dragged my injuries back here, but you didn't say anything nice and even mocked me. Aren't you being too heartless? I'm suffering in my heart, but I won't say it. When she heard this, Chu Qingyan could no longer pretend. She immediately rushed forward. Are you all right? Where are you injured? Do you want me to get someone to take a look at you? Seeing her worried and anxious expression, his heart warmed and he changed the subject. I was lying. It's been almost a year, and my injuries have long healed. You're still the same as before, so gullible. He then laughed heartily. Chu Qingyan pursed her lips. She wanted to slap him to death. However, such a relaxed atmosphere made her relax. His words were still as annoying as before. He still had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. He was still the same as before. He hadn't changed. The words that were about to come out of her mouth turned into a soft and gentle voice. She said with reddened eyes, Dongting, it's great that you're back. Otherwise, I'd have to live with this debt to you for the rest of my life. Bearing the burden of a good friend's life was so heavy that it would be difficult for her to rest her life. The smile on his face faded, and the teasing in his eyes was replaced by a look of pity. If he wasn't afraid that she would feel guilty for the rest of her life, he wouldn't have struggled to survive. He already had no motivation to live, so how could he have the courage to live? However, he still couldn't bear to see her incomplete happiness. He couldn't bear to see her go to hell. Don't worry, my life is tough. He brushed the hair on his forehead in a self-admitted flirtatious manner. Seeing how narcissistic he was, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. She couldn't be serious for more than 3 seconds when she was with him. It was just that he said it so easily, but that might not be the case. He must have gone through a lot of pain to be able to stand in front of her in one piece. She walked over and picked up their son, who had been staring at them with wide eyes from the cradle. Then she turned to him and said, "Do you want to hold my child?" The baby with grape-sized eyes blinked at him. Higashio Motetsu couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Chapter 1527. Can I really carry him? Higashio Motetsu rubbed his hands. He seemed to be hesitant, expectant, and eager to try. When he first came, he only dared to look at the child from afar. If it wasn't for the fact that the child didn't recognize strangers and giggled at him, he would have turned into a fossil. Chu Qingyan looked at him, and saw that he was no longer as carefree as before. She couldn't help but smile and put the child in his arms. Hold it tight. Hold it with your arms. The moment he touched the soft doll, Higashio Motetsu felt his entire body stiffen. He didn't even dare to move, as if he was frightened. Relax, don't be nervous. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh out loud at this rare scene. It was really too funny. Usually, when he was facing enemies, he didn't look so serious. It was too rare. If it was any other time, he definitely wouldn't let her be so smug. But now he couldn't even take care of himself, so how could he have the time to care about her? "I'm afraid I'll drop it," he said with a trembling voice. "Aren't you hugging it well? Raise your left hand slightly." Chu Qingyan corrected his posture. To be honest, why did she feel like he was hugging a bag of explosives? Xiao Kong sucked on his little finger, and looked at the person above his head. He was so cute, so why was he shaking? After a while, when he finally got used to it, Higashio Motetsu dared to move Xiao Kong closer to him. At this moment, Xiao Kong suddenly smiled at him. This smile was like the spring breeze that melted the ice, blowing away the clouds in the sky bit by bit, revealing the multicolored light. He relaxed and smiled. He turned around and asked, "What's this child's name?" "His nickname is Xiao Kong, and his full name is Xiao Huichen." She gave him the nickname, and his full name was given by the ice cube. Higashio Motetsu nodded. "Good name." With that, he lowered his head and looked at the child in his arms with a gentle expression, as if he didn't want to look away for a moment. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but laugh. She then sat down on the stone chair, and quietly looked at the pair of big children. After a while, he heard her ask, "Dong Ting, how have you been for the past year?" He paused for a moment, and then rolled his eyes at her. "It's great. I'm so happy that I don't even want to go home." She knew that after he came back, he didn't tell her the truth. "Why didn't you show up a few days ago?" "Oh, on your wedding day? I just came back and there are too many people. I don't like to join in the fun. What's more, there's still a huge mess to deal with. I don't have the time." He pretended to frown in frustration. As soon as he finished speaking, a slap landed on his back. It wasn't a strong slap, but it made him laugh involuntarily. Chu Qingyan snorted. "I think you're itching for a beating. You don't even have time for my wedding." She didn't really want to blame him. Wasn't he there? He even gave her a gift. He just didn't show up. "All right, little grandaunt. I was wrong, okay? Can you stop lecturing me? I'm afraid that you're so fierce. It's fine if you scare the flowers and grass, but what if you scare the baby?" His tone was still as annoying as ever. Chu Qingyan snorted and let him off. "Why did you climb over the wall today? Why didn't you go through the palace gates?" She propped up her chin and asked as she watched him tease Kong. "You know that the people of the pugilistic world don't care about trifles. So if it's something that can be done by climbing over the wall, why go through so much trouble?" Higashio Motetsu chuckled. When he met his good friend's disdainful gaze, he shook his head and smiled. "All right, I'll tell you the truth. I just wanted to see how the guards in the palace are doing. MMMM. In the end, it's really not that good." 2 black lines appeared on her forehead. When she saw him just now, she could clearly feel that his skills had increased by another level. She was afraid that she wouldn't be his opponent anymore. The martial arts of the palace guards were already very high in any place, but compared to a top expert like him, Was it not good enough? The two of them talked for a while, and another hour passed. Higashio Motetsu reluctantly returned little and Kong to her. I have to go. Aren't you going to stay for a while longer? After all, they had been separated for so long, and she was a little reluctant. There are many things in the sect. I have to go back and deal with them. He stood up and shrugged his shoulders at her. She nodded. Before leaving, Higashio Motetsu looked at her with gentle and smiling eyes. From now on, as long as I'm around, the Moon Palace will not find trouble with you. You can rest assured. There was too much information hidden in his words, but she understood it immediately. Warmth surged in her heart. Dongting, thank you. What's there to thank me for? I'm leaving, there's no need to send me off. I'll come to see the child next time. He waved his hand with his back facing her. Then with a light tap of his foot he leapt out. When he had already disappeared, Chu Qingyan turned to face the other side. He's already gone. Are you still not coming out? After a while, a rustling sound rang out, and a pretty figure appeared in front of her. She was dressed in a pink veil, and there was a hairpin in her hair. She looked fresh and refined. Her skin was fair and beautiful, and her eyes were bright and her teeth were white. There was a spiritual aura between her brows. This young girl was a spiritual beauty, but she didn't have any impression of her. However, Chu Qingyan didn't know her, but she knew a lot about her. I'm Tao Tao, Tao Tao of the gentleman Tao Tao. Tao Tao introduced herself. Hello Tao Tao. Please sit. Do you know Dongting? Chu Qingyan saw the hostility in her eyes, but she didn't care. Tao Tao saw her greeting her with a normal expression, as if she wasn't an uninvited guest, but a friend. She sat down smoothly. Why are you so calm? Usually, when there was a stranger by your side, shouldn't you be vigilant first? She had never seen such a straightforward and pure girl. Chu Qingyan laughed softly. Under her puzzled gaze she explained, You are not my match. Although the Big Ice Cube, Dongting, Su Jian and the others were all experts among experts, and she was still a level below them, she was more than enough to deal with the others. Therefore, when you were with outstanding people you would also become outstanding unknowingly. Although Tao Tao was unwilling to accept it, it made sense when she thought about it. From the information she had obtained, this Empress Chu was indeed a rare expert. Moreover, her forte wasn't martial arts. Thus, she didn't dwell on this matter. Indeed, I am his doctor. More accurately, I am pursuing him. She crossed her arms and said each word clearly, as if she was declaring her sovereignty. Chu Qingyan laughed when she heard this. What are you laughing at? Tao Tao scratched the back of her head. Why didn't this person play her cards according to common sense? I'm very happy. I finally see someone taking in this evildoer, so please work hard. Chu Qingyan cheered her on. Tao Tao's lips twitched. It seemed like this person in front of her wasn't a love rival. It seemed like she was thinking too much. Chapter 1528. Don't you think it's strange? Tao Tao asked foolishly. What's so strange about it? It's better to be a gentleman than a lady. Chu Qingyan winked at her. Besides, people in the martial arts world don't care about trifles. I can understand. After receiving support, Tao Tao's good impression of Chu Qingyan increased in the chat. Tao Tao immediately put down the arrogance she had just been putting on. She held her face with both hands and smiled shyly. Can I really? Didn't I say that it's impossible for a woman to chase a man? Chu Qingyan smiled. Believe in yourself. Tao Tao seemed to have gained more confidence. She smiled and then looked at her seriously. I thought you were a difficult person to get along with. I didn't expect you to be so approachable. Why do you say that? Chu Qingyan was slightly surprised. Because you're very good-looking. I've never seen anyone prettier than you. But good-looking people are usually very aloof and don't put others in their eyes. Tao Tao said while nodding to herself. That was because her martial uncles and senior sisters were all like that. But in the end she smiled and said, But you are different. Chu Qingyan felt that this little girl was really straightforward. She couldn't help but tease her. Don't you think Dongting is better looking? Tao Tao widened her eyes. Yes. He's simply a demon. But I like him. She stuck out her tongue and said the last sentence without any shyness. Chu Qingyan was amused. How did you meet Dongting? She asked. Cao Cao rolled her eyes and remembered that he hadn't told Chu Qingyan how he spent the past year. She didn't want to gossip, so she shook her head. It's a secret. Chu Qingyan thought that she was shy, so she didn't ask anymore. By the way, I have to go. Otherwise, he'll be far away and I won't be able to catch up with him. Cao Cao jumped up and was about to climb over the wall, but she stopped and looked back at Chu Qingyan. The relaxed smile on her face was gone. Instead, it was more serious. Dongting has done a lot for you. He's sacrificed a lot. I know. Chu Qingyan restrained her smile. But it doesn't matter. You don't have to feel guilty, because I will treat him well, very well, very well. I won't let him walk alone. This sentence seemed to be a declaration of sovereignty, but also a promise. Chu Qingyan was the person he liked, but it was impossible for them to be together, so she would be responsible for the rest of his life. Thank you very much. Chu Qingyan thanked him sincerely. Cao Cao smiled. There's nothing to thank me for. I'm happy to do it. Let's go. With that, she disappeared behind the wall. Chu Qingyan stared at the wall in a daze. At this time, a figure woke her up from her contemplation. Are you fooling me? As he spoke, he had already walked behind her and reached out to hold her and the baby in his arms. When did you come over? She didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Since you said that it's impossible for a man to chase a woman. Xiao rested his chin on her shoulder and closed his eyes slightly. It seems like you came at the right time. I'm not fooling her. It's just that I like this little girl. I think she and Dongting are a good match, she answered truthfully. Hearing the two words Dongting, Xiao opened his eyes. Little girl? I think she's about the same age as you, but the two of them are very active. They are a good match. Active? What kind of stupid reason was that? The Moon Palace has changed hands. It should be Dongting who did it. Big Ice Cube, we owe him a lot. Yes, I know. I'll find a chance to repay this favor. It's only right for the husband to repay his wife's debts. Xiao didn't want to owe this elusive love rival of his anymore. Although it was impossible for him and Ian to be together, he was still unhappy that his wife was being targeted. Xiao's possessiveness came online again. Big Ice Cube, you're so nice. Chu Qingyan rubbed his chin. I'll help you repay what you owe him. Then you can repay what you owe me with your body. What excuse could she find to avoid the Big Ice Cube's dissatisfaction? It's urgent, I'm waiting online. Higashio Motetsu was indeed like what he said before. He often climbed over the wall to see her and the baby. At first, he was alone, but later Cao Cao also appeared together with him. Xiao knew about this, but he turned a blind eye during the day. However, once night came, he would take it even more seriously from his wife, saying that it was time for him to repay her with his body. Every time Chu Qingyan got up from the bed with her hand on her waist, she wanted to pull him over and give him a good beating. However, she was no match for him. Chu Qingyan drank tea and glanced at the person who was playing with the baby with a rattle drum. She raised her eyebrows and said, If you like children so much, why don't you have one yourself? Forget it. If you want me to raise a child, why don't you kill me? I'm afraid it'll melt in my mouth, and I'm afraid it'll break in my hands. It's too hard to please. Moreover, I can't give birth alone. He waved his hand, his eyes fixed on Nkong in the cradle as he casually replied. Chu Qingyan looked at Cao Cao, only to see her looking at Nkong with a normal expression. Chu Qingyan chuckled. It seemed that he could keep his composure better than she thought. At this moment, Cao Cao took away the rattle drum in his hand when he wasn't paying attention, because she realized that little Nkong especially loved this rattle drum today. Cao Cao, why are you stealing mine? Higashio Motetsu saw that Nkong ignored him and looked at Cao Cao, so he frowned and said. Cao Cao said righteously, this rattle drum isn't yours. But I took it first. He glared. Oh, but now that it's in my hands, you can only blame yourself for not being able to protect it. Cao Cao stuck her tongue out at him and mocked. Higashio Motetsu felt that he couldn't be described as angry at all. He was simply furious. Chu Qingyan rubbed her forehead. This kind of thing happened 2 or 3 times every time. Coincidentally, Jasper came over for something, so she took a few steps away to talk. When she came back, only Dong Ting was left holding the child and shaking the rattledrum. She couldn't help but be puzzled. Where's Tao Tao? She left. He took the time to reply while playing with the child. You made her run away in anger again? This wasn't the second or third time. If only I could really make her run away in anger, then I wouldn't have to be so troubled. He looked up and said helplessly. Is that so? Why can't I tell that you're troubled? Tao Tao, on the other hand, is a very good girl. Can't you tell that she seems to like you a lot? Chu Qingyan asked seriously. He smiled bitterly and said, We're not compatible. Because he had loved before, he was merciful. Not being able to love was too torturous. Although he sincerely wished the little fellow well, he didn't have any extra feelings for others. So he didn't want her to follow in his footsteps. She still wanted to say something, but it was a pity that this was a matter between the two of them after all. It wouldn't be good for her to get involved too much. At this moment, he put the child back into the cradle and stood up, smiling wickedly. I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first. I'll come back to see you later. Chu Qingyan looked at his departing figure and sighed faintly. When it came to relationships, it was hard to say. It still depended on the heart. As for the outcome, it could only depend on their luck. Chu Qingyan walked back with the baby in her arms. She lowered her head and smiled gently. Kong Kong, let's go to the imperial study to visit your imperial father, and bring him delicious food, okay? Kong Kong waved his arms and laughed. If he wanted happiness, it was very simple. He just had to be content. Chapter 1529. Spring came and autumn went. Flowers bloomed and fell. Snow fell and melted. Year after year, year after year, year after year. Time was like an arrow and the sun and moon were like shuttles. In the blink of an eye, 2 years passed. In Yansu Palace, a baby's voice came out. You have no conscience, leaving this treasure in the middle of the night again. This treasure is angry. This treasure wants to run away from the palace. At this time, there was a small figure carrying a small bag on his back. His shoes made a bang-bang sound as he walked towards the door step by step. When he reached the threshold, he used his hands and feet to crawl over. Seeing this, Ling and the others were scared witless. They wanted to go up and help him, but because of their master behind them, they didn't dare move forward. When the little master's small body turned into a small black dot and disappeared into the distance, Ling looked at the little empress behind him with a bitter expression. Empress, the little master left. Do you need this subordinate to chase him back? Xining on the side gave a strong nod. Father Chu on the side was prepared to chase after him, but when his daughter looked over, he stopped in his tracks. He rubbed the back of his head as his eyes sparkled. How many times has it been this month? Chu Qingyan leaned back in her chair and casually asked. Xining heard this and immediately counted with her fingers. Once at the beginning of the month, once before the old man's birthday, once 6 days ago, once yesterday, and adding today, it's the 5th time. Seeing Xining raise her hand, Chu Qingyan nodded. It's a bit better than last month. Then, Father Chu wanted to plead for his little grandson, but he was stopped by his daughter's gaze. Wait and see how long he can last this time. Chu Qingyan revealed a smile and said in a confident voice. Since the Empress said this, then everyone would just wait. Although it was like this, Chu Qingyan could still see the anxious and worried expressions on everyone's faces. She gave a faint sigh. Kong Kong's arrogance of running away from home could not be encouraged. But why did it seem like she had become an evil mother? She felt bitter in her heart. After a while, everyone couldn't take it anymore. Chu Qingyan tapped her finger on the armrest and smiled. It seemed that she was quite stubborn this time. She was a little more stubborn than usual. At this moment, a small figure appeared in everyone's field of vision. The person who had been valiant and high-spirited just a moment ago was now drooping his head and looking pitifully at his imperial mother who was sitting on the main seat. Everyone immediately swarmed over and inquired about his well-being. Kong Kong, Grandpa's good grandson. Aren't you tired? Cough cough correction, it was his grandson. He had clearly eaten a plate of osmanthus pastries before he left to replenish his energy. Little prince, are you thirsty? Cough, cough. He still had a small water bottle hanging from his waist. In order to resist, he had prepared everything. Little master, this subordinate was worried to death. Next time you leave, remember to bring this subordinate with you. This subordinate will protect your safety. Forget it, you're just here to spy on me. Little Kong Kong looked around at the people around him. His grandfather, who was pretending to wipe his tears, Xining Yi, who was holding water, Hualing Su, who had volunteered, Jin Xian Su Su, who was standing at the side, Jasper Yi, who was holding a cloth towel. No matter how he thought about it, only his heartless imperial mother was not present. He walked over to his imperial mother with his short legs and pouted. Imperial mother, why didn't you come and look for Bao Bao? Bao Bao has almost reached the imperial garden. Where did you go last time? Chu Qingyan asked in amusement. Grandpa and the others at the entrance of the palace. Little Kong Kong replied honestly. Chu Qingyan nodded and replied in a serious manner. You've improved compared to last time. Continue to work hard next time, and you might even reach the entrance of the palace. Good luck, Bao Bao. Little Kong Kong was stunned. Why was Imperial Mother not following the routine? How was he going to run away from home in the future? Looking at his smiling Imperial Mother, Little Kong Kong suddenly had a bad idea. He swallowed his saliva and used his hands and feet to climb up his Imperial Mother's clothes. Because he had been thrown by Imperial Father to Xiao Lai to be trained since he was young, he was very agile even though he was small. After climbing up to his Imperial Mother's knees, Little Kong Kong gathered his emotions before opening his two short arms and hugging his Imperial Mother's neck. Then, he started to wail. You heartless person, you don't want Bao Bao anymore after having Imperial Father. Bao Bao's heart is bitter. Bao Bao is a child that no one wants. Why is Bao Bao's life so bitter? Bao Bao is so upset. Little Kong Kong was crying his heart out, but he still had the time to observe his Imperial Mother's expression. It seemed that he had been training hard for a long time, even though they knew that the little master had to put on a show every few days. Everyone's heart still ached when they saw him crying, wishing that they could bear it for him. How could Chu Qingyan not know if he was really crying or faking it? But she knew that if she did not give him a way out now, he might really cry later. Who said that Imperial Mother doesn't want you after having you? Imperial Mother can't wait to dote on you. Look at how many people are worried about you when you cry. She patted his back gently, then pointed at the people around him and said gently with a smile. Little Kong Kong blinked and looked back. He felt that his Imperial Mother's words were very reasonable, but he still turned back and nestled in her neck. He said in a muffled voice, but Bao Bao wants you to hurt Bao Bao more. Aren't you worried about Bao Bao? Chu Qingyan chuckled. Then how do you want Imperial Mother to dote on you more? Little Kong Kong pouted and said slowly, accompany me tonight, don't accompany Imperial Father. Chu Qingyan sighed softly in her heart. This was all caused by Big Ice Cube. He had pestered her so much last night that she had no choice but to send Kong Kong to the small hall. She had been tormented too much and slept late this morning. When Kong Kong woke up and couldn't find her, he started to be unhappy. All right, I'll listen to you, little darling. All right, then Bao Bao will reluctantly believe you this time. He was really flexible. Chu Qingyan smiled. So reluctant? Little Kong Kong raised his chin slightly and snorted softly. Imperial Mother, your trust in Bao Bao has already dropped to the bottom. Chu Qingyan laughed and shook her head. This child was so smart, she didn't know who he learned it from. She took the cloth from Jasper's hand and carefully wiped his sweat. After a while, little Kong Kong remembered that he had neglected his grandfather. He immediately jumped off his Imperial Mother's lap and ran over. Grandfather, grandfather, let's go fly high. Father Chu's glass heart had already shattered. Grandfather is unhappy. Grandfather also wants to run away from home. Little Kong Kong raised his head and asked innocently. He then took off his small cloth bag and water bottle and handed them over. Then these are for you. These are essential for traveling and running away from home. Chu Machen's father choked and pouted. Then if Grandpa runs away from home, will Kong Kong leave with him? Little Kong Kong tilted his head and thought for a while before nodding mysteriously. Bao Bao can accompany you to the Imperial Garden. Seeing the adult and child planning their plan to leave home as if no one else was around, Chu Qingyan's lips twitched. They were so loud. What was there to be mysterious about? Father Chu felt that he had been comforted and smiled in satisfaction. All right, then grandfather will bring you to fly high. Little Kong Kong immediately opened his arms, and after being picked up, he sat on his grandfather's shoulder with familiarity. He turned his head and said to his imperial mother in joy, Bao Bao is going to play. See you later, Imperial Mother. The two disappeared on the spot after speaking. Hua Ling and the others immediately chased after them. Old master, slow down, slow down. Chapter 1530. As Chu Qingyan watched the big and small group leave, she couldn't help but laugh. She stood up and walked out of the palace hall. The autumn air outside was refreshing, and the maple leaves were bright red. It was a pleasant sight. Time really flies. It's another autumn. A golden leaf fell in front of her. She reached out to catch it and sighed softly. Xining went to take care of Kong Kong, so there were only Jasper and Xiao Anzi by her side. Xiao Anzi smiled and said, Yes, it won't be long before snow covers the entire capital. The little prince will be able to build snowmen to play with. Chu Qingyan wanted to facepalm. These people seemed to have their hearts set on Kong Kong. However, she had to admit that Kong Kong had inherited his father's appearance. He already had a devilish appearance at such a young age. In addition, he was good at acting spoiled and cute. He was simply popular with both the old and the young. Not only in the palace, but even when he attended court with Big Ice Cube, he could do whatever he wanted. Perhaps he was blessed by the heavens. There were too many people who doted on him, so she often had to play the bad guy, afraid that he would go astray. Fortunately, her son's IQ and EQ were very high. He had never become arrogant because he was spoiled. Moreover, she didn't have to worry about whether he would be bullied when he went out. It was good enough that he didn't tease others. The autumn wind blew. Chu Qingyan looked at the setting sun in the distance. The afterglow was faint, and the dim yellow light easily pulled people into memories. She wondered how Yan Luo and Jing Jing were doing. Last winter, Ethereal suddenly received a letter from Yan Luo. He left in a hurry, saying that someone was critically ill. As for who it was, the letter didn't specify. Until now there was still no news of them. It was very worrying, especially Xiao. He had lost a lot of weight compared to before. Although he didn't say it, everyone could see that he was very worried. She wanted to help, but the people she sent out only said, There's no news. This matter could only be kept in her heart. At this moment, Jasper received a letter. Mistress, Lady Water Spirit has received a letter from Lady Ethereal. Chu Qingyan was stunned. It was too unexpected. She couldn't wait to take it. She took a deep breath before opening the envelope. After hurriedly reading the words on it, she exhaled heavily. Her whole body relaxed, and the corner of her mouth raised into a thick smile. They were all coming back. What a joyous occasion. However, there had been one joyous event after another recently. Sima Jun and Ji Linyang entered the palace together with Hua Xiuli and Lin Fingyi. The entire palace instantly became lively. After receiving the news, Chu Qingyan couldn't sit still. From time to time, she would look out of the hall. Compared to him, Xiaosu was calmer. You'll see her sooner or later. Don't worry. Little Kong, who was sitting at the side playing with the 9 rings in his imperial father's arms, tilted his head and asked, Imperial father, are Sima Yi and Ji Susu coming? Chu Qingyan was a little surprised. Kong Kong still remembers Aunt Sima and Uncle Ji? She remembered that when Kong Kong was 1 year old, Sima and Ji Linyang had just entered the palace and sent many gifts. It had been more than a year since then. Little Kong looked at his imperial mother with disdain. Imperial mother, you're so stupid. Bao Bao is still very young and doesn't have amnesia yet. Chu Qingyan choked. It wasn't necessarily a good thing for a child to mature early. For example, he could choke to death at any moment. At this moment, someone had already reported that Sima and the others were about to arrive. Chu Qingyan immediately stood up and walked to the door. At this moment, Xiao Su raised his hand to help his son solve the most difficult problem. His son immediately looked up with starry eyes and said in admiration, "Imperial father, you're so amazing. Your imperial mother asked Mulin to do this. So who's better?" Xiao Su looked at his son calmly. Little Ankang's eyes lit up. "Imperial mother is better." Xiao Su smiled. "So will you still say that your imperial mother is stupid in the future?" Little Ankang immediately shook his head. "Imperial mother is so smart and amazing. She's not stupid at all." Only then did Xiao Su raise his hand to pat his son's head in satisfaction. "That's right, your imperial mother is very smart and amazing. She only stayed in the palace and hid her intelligence because she wanted to accompany imperial father and you. She sacrificed a lot for us, so you can't make your imperial mother sad in the future. You have to be filial to her and protect her." Little Ankang sniffled. "Imperial mother is good. Bao Bao wants to hug imperial mother." Xiao Su's eyes curved as he placed his son on the ground. Watching him walk over with his short legs to look for the little fellow, the corners of his mouth rose. Mu Ling, who was standing at the side, was already used to this master who had transformed into a black-bellied wife-protecting maniac. At this moment, a soft body pounced at her feet. Imperial Mother, Bao Bao will protect you. Bao Bao is amazing." Chu Qingyan, who was wholeheartedly outside, did not notice that her big ice block had raised her image in her son's heart by an inch. Chu Qingyan was already used to her son's sudden confession. She thought that her son's flirting skills were natural, and that he would harm many girls in the future. However, she did not know that her big ice block had done so much for her behind her back. She had misunderstood. Chu Qingyan carried her son and pinched his chubby little face. I know. Our Kong Kong is a little man now." Little Ankang left a watermark on her face and giggled. With that he came over. "I already told you that I don't like veils. Aren't you afraid that I'll get a rash from covering it?" Sima Jun was the first to grumble. "Wife, it's late autumn now. Summer has already passed." Ji Linyang replied unhurriedly. "You vinegar jar. Wife is so good at praising me." Sima Jun was dumbfounded, but then she laughed for some reason. She shook her head and stepped into the hall. She took off her veil and smiled sweetly. "Qingyan, long time no see." Sima Jun went forward and gave him a bear hug. Ji Linyang cupped his hands at the two of them. "I've made a fool of myself." Xiao Su nodded slightly at him and gestured for him to take a seat. Chu Qingyan hugged him back and laughed. "You two are so close. Long time no see." "It's been more than a year. It's not easy to see each other again." Sima Jun sighed. Chu Qingyan winked at her and teased. "Who knows where you went during your honeymoon month? You still have the cheek to mention it." Sima Jun blushed. "What are you talking about?" It was rare to see this queen behave like a little girl. Chu Qingyan was about to tease her more when a voice sounded. "Sima Yi." Sima Jun lowered her head and saw the little one that she had neglected. Her eyes lit up, and she immediately squatted down. "What a cute baby. This must be Kong Kong." Little Ankang nodded solemnly. "This baby's nickname is Ankang, and his full name is Xiao Huichen. Sima Yi, please take care of me. Wow, so cute. I really want to carry him home." Sima Jun's eyes lit up. Little Ankang thought for a moment and said seriously, "You have to discuss this with my father and mother. But if you can marry me, we can see each other every day." Chu Qingyan's mouth twitched. No one could beat his flirting skills. Ji Linyang's face darkened. He had just arrived and was already being poached. Chapter 1531. Sima Yi, what do you think? Xiao Kong did not notice everyone's reaction at all. He even pulled Sima Jun and asked very innocently. Sima Jun felt that she had been completely melted by this cute little boy. She wanted nothing more than to hug him and ravage him. However, just as she stretched out her hand, it was grabbed by a familiar pair of large hands. Then, she turned around and was pulled into a wide and strong embrace. Before she could say anything, she heard a voice above her head that was filled with possessiveness. "Xiao Bao, I'm sorry but your Aunt Sima is already taken." You should find someone else. Ji Linyang knew that Xiao Kong was still young, so he spoke much more gently. Xiao Kong blinked and looked at Ji Susu. He pouted. All right then, if Sima Yi still wants to marry us in the future, tell Bao Bao. So this Xiao Bao was still thinking about his wife. Ji Linyang didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At this time, the person in his arms was still cheering for Xiao Bao. Kong well said. Ji Linyang, I'm telling you, if you dare to bully me, I'll find someone else in a minute. This big and small pair was really a headache. At this time, a voice sounded. Yo Kong, didn't you say that you wanted to marry me? Why did you change your mind so quickly? With that, Hua Xiao and Lin Fingyi appeared in the hall together. Xiao Kong smiled. Hua Yi Lin Susu. Children have to be polite. So after greeting them, Xiao Kong answered Hua Yi's question. It doesn't matter. You came to the palace to massage my mother's legs, and Sima Yi came to massage my mother's shoulders. So both of you came. Uft. Sima Jun was in disbelief. Hua Xiao pounced into her miser's arms. What the hell? You actually want to marry us to be your mother's palace maids? Madam, you're so hurtful. Chu Qingyan, who was at the side, originally thought that her son was no longer as obedient as his mother. She didn't expect him to have such an idea. She immediately felt that she didn't raise this kid for nothing. At this time, Xiao Kong turned to look at his mother. Did Bao Bao say something wrong? The two Yi looked very sad. Lin Fingyi laughed and replied. They thought that you were attracted to their beauty, but the reality is so harsh. Xiao Su picked up his son and tapped his cheek. Well done. Being praised by his father, Kong clapped his hands and cheered. Chu Qingyan glared at Big Ice Cube. Don't push your luck. Don't listen to Kong's nonsense. Come, I've already ordered people to set up a banquet in the Imperial Garden. Everyone can enjoy the flowers while drinking. Chu Qingyan called out. The sky is high, the clouds are light, and the autumn wind is blowing gently. It's a good time to drink wine and admire chrysanthemums. Lin Fingyi smiled faintly, his eyes filled with joy. Xiao Su nodded and said to his friend, I know you love flowers the most. Black chrysanthemum and purple dragon crouching snow have both bloomed. Everyone, please move. Hearing this, Lin Fingyi was in high spirits. He pulled his fiancée and immediately left the palace. Sima Jun and the others were also very curious. The best flowers in the world were probably all in the Imperial Garden. They were going to feast their eyes today. Thus, the group of people headed towards the Imperial Garden in a grandiose manner. The gardeners in the Imperial Garden had already received the news, and the chrysanthemums were already placed in the right places. Cinnabar red frost, jade phoenix, sea of snow, black ink, fragrant mountain young phoenix. They were colorful and fragrant, and had a myriad of bearings. Some were clustered in groups of 3 or 5, and some were outshone by themselves. It was truly beautiful and very lovable. The banquet was set in the center of the garden. It could be said that they were sitting in a sea of flowers. No wonder so many people like to be the emperor. It's a different feeling to sit on the wonders of the world. Sima Jun drank a mouthful of wine and took a deep breath. The fragrance of flowers lingered in the air, and he felt that the turbid air in his chest had already dissipated. His mouth and nose were filled with the light fragrance of flowers, making him feel relaxed and happy. The sky was high, the clouds were white, the flowers were fragrant, the scenery was beautiful, and the wine was good. It was simply the most beautiful moment in the world. Chu Qingyan shook her head and said, There's no such thing as free enjoyment in this world. This country has endless worries, and the people have endless things to do. Thus, it's better to have nothing to do. That's true. At least we can be as free as the fish in the sea, and as free as the birds in the sky. You can only look around these high walls and sigh. Hua Xiaoli raised her wine cup and gave her a sympathetic look. Chu Qingyan blinked and suddenly smiled mysteriously. That's not certain. Sima Jun and Hua Xiaoli looked at each other. There was something fishy. The two of them immediately came over. Is there something you're hiding from us? Chu Qingyan chuckled and shook her finger. Heaven's secrets cannot be revealed. Tisk, after following that person of yours, your mouth has become even tighter. Hua Xiaoli ridiculed. Sima Jun nodded in agreement. That's right. You don't treat us as friends at all." Knowing that they were trying to provoke her, Chu Qingyan only smiled and did not say anything. She leisurely drank her wine and was very satisfied. When Ji Linyang heard their conversation, he turned to look at Xiao Su. "Do you have other plans?" Before Xiao Su could answer, Lin Fengyi smiled and said, "This person is very smart. He has already started to leave everything to others. So just watch." Xiao Su smiled when he heard this. After being tied down for so many years, it's time to relax. Everyone present was smart and understood at once. At this moment, Xiao Kong could not sit still after eating for a while. When he saw a butterfly flying among the flowers, he climbed down from his chair and chased after it. When Chu Qingyan saw this, she let Jin Xian follow. Hence, Xiao Kong huffed and puffed in front of the butterfly, while Jin Xian followed closely behind. For the sake of the banquet, the imperial garden was cleared. The palace maids and eunuchs were all waiting by the banquet. The guards were stationed outside, so there were only a few gardeners taking care of the flowers and plants in the garden. Jin Xian stood 3 to 5 steps away from his little master and looked after him. At this moment, Xiao Kong plucked a blade of grass and turned to smile at him cutely. Jin Xian Su look, the grass is so long. Jin Xian's firm chin softened at Xiao Kong's words. He nodded at him. It is very long, even longer than your finger. Xiao Kong chuckled. Bao Bao will pick a beautiful flower for you, Su, and then you can give it to Xining Yi. Because his mother had once told him that Xining Yi and Jin Xian would live together in the future, just like his mother and father. Children's words were the most sincere blessings. Jin Xian's eyes seemed to soften. Okay, you will definitely be very happy to Xining Yi. Xiao Kong seemed to be encouraged and jumped around the flowers even more happily. However, at this warm and cozy moment, 2 gardeners who were tending to the flowers and plants looked at each other, and then slowly moved towards them, a strange look flashing in their eyes. Chapter 1532. Just as Jin Xian was looking at his little master gently with his hands behind his back, a figure appeared 3 steps away from him with his back facing the sun, blocking him from the little master. The head with the conical bamboo hat was lowered, making it impossible to see his face. Relying on the sharp judgment of a martial artist, Jin Xian calmly placed his hand on his waist, his expression still the same as usual. Just as he was about to ask this person to move aside, the person who had his head lowered suddenly raised his head, his eyes filled with excitement. "Young sect master, I finally found you." This hoarse voice, as well as those slightly red eyes, revealed the person's emotions. His entire body was trembling with excitement. Jin Xian narrowed his eyes because of these words. "Who are you? I don't understand what you're talking about. Young sect master, get out of the way." "Young sect master, from North Korea to Sichuan, we have been searching for you for 10 whole years. You are the hope of the Sun Clan, the successor of the Sun Flame sect. Young sect master, come home with me," the old man in his 50s said anxiously as tears streamed down his face. However, Jin Xian was not moved by his words, and looked at him indifferently. "You have no evidence, why should I believe you?" The old man was stunned, as if his acupoints had been pressed. "Young sect master, have you forgotten? Don't you remember the blood feud?" Jin Xian remained unmoved. "I don't know what you're talking about. If you don't move aside now, don't blame me for being impolite." The old man looked as if he had been struck by lightning, but he quickly revealed a puzzled expression, frowning as he stared at Jin Xian. At this moment, another gardener moved to Xiao Kang's side and said fiercely, "Elder Zhua, I think young sect master has already smoothed out his edges and corners outside, and doesn't want to go back and revive the Sun Clan. It's useless for you to say this to him, just do it." With that, the middle-aged man bent down to carry little Kong. At this moment, little Kong had no idea that danger was approaching and looked at everyone blankly. At this moment, a slender figure rushed over and knocked the middle-aged man away. The 2 of them fell together. Jin Xian's heart finally relaxed. If it wasn't for the fact that the 2 of them didn't have any killing intent when they approached, with his many years of experience, he wouldn't have let them get close to him so easily. But soon his heart was in his mouth again. He quickly pulled out his sword and shouted, "Guards, there's an assassin!" Then he decisively kicked the old man away, and appeared beside the middle-aged man in the blink of an eye. He blocked the hand that was about to attack Xining and pulled her up. Then he pushed her towards Nkong and said, "Protect the little master." Then he charged towards the two people with his sword. As soon as there was a commotion, the guards from all directions rushed over. At this moment, they surrounded the two people together with Jin Xian. The old man and the middle-aged man did not expect the guards of the Sichuan palace to arrive so quickly. The two of them threw away the bamboo hats on their faces and fought with the guards with their backs facing each other. Xiao Su, Chu Qingyan and the rest rushed over. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "Keep them alive." "Yes." At this moment, Chu Qingyan hurried to her son and asked nervously, "Kong Kong, are you hurt?" And Kong opened his arms and moved from Xining's arms into his mother's arms. He shook his head obediently and did not look frightened at all. He kissed his mother's face and said like a little adult, "Bao Bao is fine." Xining and Yi chased away the bad guys. Chu Qingyan roughly understood the situation when she heard this. She pulled Xining over and checked her left and right. When she found that she was not injured, she heaved a sigh of relief and said gratefully, "Xining, thank you for protecting Kong Kong." Xining hurriedly waved her hands and said, "This is what this servant should do. Master, you're too kind to this servant." And Kong reached out and hugged Xining's face, leaving behind a mouthful of saliva. Then he returned to his mother's arms and giggled. Xining, who had rushed over recklessly just now and was now a little scared, completely relaxed because of this kiss. The little master was really like a fairy child who had descended from the heavens, cute and sensible. Xiao Su looked at his son who was completely unaffected, then turned his attention back to the battle. Meanwhile, Sima Jun and Ji Linyang, who enjoyed watching the show, were munching on melon seeds as they watched from the side. Sima Jun and Ji Linyang would occasionally comment on the martial arts of the combatants. If one didn't know better, they would have thought that they were here to watch a show. Not long after, the people were subdued. "Who are you people? Why are you harming my son?" Looking at the two people who were kneeling in front of him, Xiao Su's voice was slightly low. The old man raised his head. He was in a more sorry state than before, but he straightened his back and said with a firm expression, "I am Zhua Haoyan, an elder of the Sun Blaze sect of the North Korean Sun Clan. This is Choi Mingxue, a guardian of the Sun Blaze sect. We are not here to harm the Sichuan royal family. We are here to find someone in the palace." North Korea? Sun Clan? Sun Blaze sect? Everyone looked at each other. Most of them were confused, but Sima Jun and Ji Linyang looked at each other in surprise. Xiao Su raised his eyebrows. "Ooh." At this moment, the old man turned to look at Jin Xian, who had been silent after putting away his sword. His tone became agitated. "We are looking for our Sunblaze sect's young sect master, Murong Yinxian, who is also the commander of your Sichuan royal guards, Jin Xian." This turn of events was too sudden, to the extent that those who were munching on melon seeds and those who were commenting all fell silent. Almost everyone had an even bigger question mark above their heads. "You're saying that Jin Xian is your young sect master?" Chu Qingyan was shocked. What was this? She was dumbfounded. "Young sect master, quickly tell them who you are." Elder Zhuo looked at Jin Xian expectantly. Everyone simultaneously turned to look at Jin Xian. However, the person in question was calmer than anyone else. He glanced at the two people who were even more agitated because of his gaze. His voice was very calm. "I don't know you." As soon as he said this, Elder Zhuo trembled and looked at him in disbelief. Meanwhile, Enforcer Chui's suppressed anger exploded. "Young sect master, it's fine if you don't know us. After all, you were only 6 years old when you left. But you can't forget the Sun Clan and the Sunblaze sect. How can you face your mother like this?" His silent eyes moved. Jin Xian pursed his lips. "I don't understand what you're saying, and I don't want to understand." The situation suddenly became tense. Xiao Su's gaze swept over Elder Zhuo, Enforcer Chui, and Jin Xian. Then he said in a low voice, Take these two away first. The rest of you, follow me to Songyu Hall. The group left the imperial garden. On the way, they met Xiao and Xiao who were escorting an old woman. The two of us just caught a suspicious person outside the palace and found out a lot of things. It seems to be related to imperial sister-in-law's Jean Xian, so we brought her into the palace, Xiao said. What a coincidence. We caught two here too, Lin Fingyi said in surprise. Take them away together. The two of you come with me too. Xiao Su called out to his two brothers and walked forward. Xiao and Xiao looked at each other. Was there going to be a good show? Let's go. As expected, they were a bunch of people who didn't mind watching a show. Chapter 1533. After a while, everyone sat down in Songyu Hall. The palace maids served them tea and left. The atmosphere in the hall was a little tense. The chief eunuch who was in charge of the flower show knelt in the hall and kowtowed while trembling. These two are gardeners that I picked out from the common people. They have been in the palace for 2 or 3 months, and have always been dutiful. I didn't expect that they would commit such a heinous crime. It's my fault for not being strict enough, and causing the little prince to be frightened. I'm guilty. The truth of how the two had sneaked into the palace was also revealed. No one expected them to be so calm. When they found out that the palace was recruiting gardeners, they killed the original owner and replaced him. Their acting skills were so good that no one saw through them. Xiao Su raised his hand and ordered someone to take him away for punishment. At this moment, Xiao Su looked up at Jean Xian. Tell me about what happened in the garden. Jean Xian nodded and recounted everything that had happened in the garden. He did not add any details, including what he said. Everyone was digesting the shock of this incident. What's the background of this North Korea? I've been doing business for so many years, but I've never heard of it. Hua Xiuli was the first to ask. At this moment, Ji Linyang spoke up. It's a coincidence. Jun Yao and I passed by this North Korea a few years ago, but we only stayed at the border for a few days before leaving. We only know that this country is different from other countries. Their citizens believe in religion. Although it's a country, it's divided into two, the sun and moon races. The two people who came today should be from the sun race. To be able to become an elder and a protector, they must have a high status in the race. Sima Jun continued from where Ji Linyang had left off. The biggest religion of the sun race is the Sun Flame sect, which faces the sun and worships martial arts. The moon race is the moon sect, which faces the moon and worships culture and education. The sun and moon represent light, which is also the origin of North Korea's name. This country is hidden in the highest mountain forest in the south. It's difficult to enter and leave, and has always been a legend. If it weren't for Lan Zhuang's business in the south a few years ago, we wouldn't have entered by accident. However, we only touched the borders of their country. What I said just now is the information Lan Zhuang collected. Lan Manor had branches all over the world. It was an underground business, and there were all sorts of mermaids and people there. Any news could be gathered. No one had expected that the two people they had caught today would have such a high status, and that such a large country was involved. What was even more unexpected was that their target was actually Jean Xian. I heard that when Jean Xian was saved by sister-in-law, he had already lost his memories of the past. If what they said is true, it's not impossible. However, I'm afraid that these people will take advantage of the situation and fabricate a groundless story to achieve an unspeakable secret. Xiao muttered to himself for a moment before voicing his opinion. Now that imperial sister-in-law was the empress of the country, an imperial brother doted on her so much, the people around her were impregnable. Those who had bad intentions had no way of getting in, and could only use the people around her. The woman we caught is also of the rank of an elder. Although we managed to pry some information out of her, it still feels strange. We still have to be careful. Chu Qingyan looked at Jean Xian in front of her. His posture was tall and straight, and he was already able to hold his own. He was no longer the thin and weak youth from before. She used a gentle tone to ask for his opinion. Jean Xian, what do you think? Jean Xian raised his head with a serious expression, and expressed his position without hesitation. Whether this matter is true or not, this subordinate feels that it has nothing to do with this subordinate. This subordinate only wants to stay by master and little master's side, to stay in Sichuan. Sun Clan? Sun Flame Sect? It had nothing to do with him at all. Since Jin Xian had already expressed his position, no one asked any more questions. Chu Qingyan looked at him deeply, and fell into deep thought. The chrysanthemum viewing banquet ended in a hurry because of this matter, and because they had to thoroughly investigate whether there were any remaining accomplices. Xiao Su ordered the banquet to be held elsewhere. After everyone left, Chu Qingyan called out to Jin Xian. The two of them walked to the parasol tree in the courtyard and stood still. Jin Xian, those people might know about your background. Why do you look like you don't care at all? Chu Qingyan turned around and asked with a puzzled gaze. To be honest, all these years, she had always wanted to help him find his roots, but he couldn't remember anything and had nowhere to find it. She had tried her best to give him the warmth of his home, but now that there was a clue, he looked like it had nothing to do with him. It really made her very puzzled. Jin Xian was silent for a while before lifting his gaze. Master, to this subordinate, the past is already in the past. Sichuan is this subordinate's home, and master, little master and everyone else are this subordinate's family. This subordinate doesn't want to go back to the past. Didn't master say that contentment is happiness? This subordinate likes the current life very much and doesn't want to break this peace and happiness because of some groundless matters. These words moved her very much. Usually, Jin Xian was a man of few words and didn't like to show his emotions, preferring to use actions to express himself. She didn't expect him to say such touching words, and she had always treated him as her own little brother, feeling gratified that a little brother had grown up in the family. But blood relations, this was something that others couldn't make up for. An idea gradually formed in her heart and her tone suddenly became serious. Jin Xian, tell me, have you already recovered your memories? Jin Xian was startled. He didn't expect his master to be so powerful. He didn't say anything, but she guessed it. Master, you this subordinate. He pursed his lips and finally admitted defeat under his master's clear and solemn gaze. In a low voice he admitted, yes, 2 years ago, this subordinate already remembered. Although her guess was confirmed, she was still very shocked. Then why didn't you tell us? We can help you find your family. Jin Xian smiled bitterly. Those are some bad memories, it's better not to mention them. It was rare to see such a desolate expression on his face. Chu Qingyan's heart clenched. Could it be that what those people said was true? Master, did you know? Jin Xian raised his head and a trace of grief flashed through his eyes. The Sun Clan and the Yu Clan have always been at odds, and my father let down my mother by favoring his concubine and neglecting his wife. He didn't expect that woman to be from the Yu Clan, and brought disaster to the family. My mother died in order to protect me. I was brought out by my master and wandered all the way to Sichuan, but the Yu Clan didn't let me go and chased me all the way. When I met master, my master also died in order to protect me. I was seriously injured at that time, and was unconscious on the road before being taken away by those Taoists. When I woke up, I had already forgotten everything. Jin Xian clenched his fists, his eyes slightly red as he said hatefully, I've never thought of going back. They bullied my mother, so why should I go back and revive the Sunblaze sect? If the Sunblaze sect was destroyed, I would be even happier. Chapter 1534. She had never seen Jin Xian in such pain, grief, and indignation, but it made her feel even more pity for him. Hearing these words, Chu Qingyan wanted nothing more than to raze the Sunblaze sect to the ground. Truly too hateful. Living on the edge of life and death from a young age, suffering all kinds of hardships, and he was only a child of a few years old. Her heart burned with rage. Jin Xian, I'll avenge you. Jin Xian raised his head in shock. Master, what did you say? Jin Xian, whether or not you're going back to be the young sect master is one thing, but don't you want to avenge your mother and master? You've suffered all kinds of hardships, but those culprits are still roaming free. Can you live in peace for the rest of your life? Even if you can swallow this, I can't. Chu Qingyan said with righteous indignation. The aura that had been hidden under the peaceful and warm atmosphere for the past 2 years suddenly burst forth, making people unable to look straight at her. Jin Xian looked at the master in front of him, a brief struggle flashing through his eyes. Mother and master won't let me take revenge. He remembered his mother lying in a pool of blood, holding his hand and saying, Xianer, promise mother. Live on, don't hate, don't take revenge. Leave this place far away, don't come back, don't come back. That day master pushed him away and roared. Go! Go far away. Live on well. They didn't let him go back, and told him to go far away. So when he recalled everything, he was in so much pain that he wished he was dead, but he couldn't personally kill those enemies. Because he promised his mother and master to let go of his hatred and not take revenge, he could only grit his teeth and bear it silently. The resentment lasted for a long time, but he couldn't let it go. Chu Qingyan could understand. Her eyes brightened. Jin Xian, do you know why your mother and master said that? Jin Xian shook his head. Because you were still young back then, and didn't even have the ability to protect yourself. They were afraid that you wouldn't be able to survive. They were afraid that you would be blinded by hatred. They were even more afraid that you would throw an egg at a rock and fail to live up to their painstaking efforts to protect you. At this point, Chu Qingyan's expression turned cold. However, things are different now. You are no longer alone. You have me and everyone else. If you get bullied or hurt, you can fight back. You don't have to be so cautious. We will always be behind you. Even if the sky falls, we will be there to help you. Although his words were soft, they were forceful and convincing from the bottom of his heart. Master. Jin Xian's pupils shrank and his eyes turned red. So, Chu Qingyan looked into his eyes and said word by word. You should ask yourself again before you make a decision. I'm not asking you to take revenge. I don't want you to live with regrets for the rest of your life. No matter what decision you make, I'll support you. She knew Jin Xian. Although he was calm and self-disciplined, he valued relationships very much. Otherwise, he would not have sworn to follow her until now just because she had done him a favor. Because of a sentence from the ice cube, he went to the court and became an official, just to be able to help her one day. And because she was in danger, he resolutely gave up the power and wealth at his fingertips. How could such a person who had a clear distinction between love and hate swallow his anger? If it weren't for his mother and master's last words, she believed that when he remembered the truth, he would have impatiently raised his sword to take revenge. To hate but not be able to take revenge, to have bitterness that was hard to say. For a man with courage, that was a painful torment. So she cut off all his worries and became his backing. She let him make a decision from his heart again. In a person's life, the most painful thing was to have no choice and not be able to choose to accept the injustice. Master had already said this. If he continued to be a coward, he would be letting down his mother and master's sufferings. Jin Xian raised his head. His voice was sonorous and powerful. Gritting his teeth, he said, Master, I want revenge. I want to seek justice for myself. I want to kill my enemies. In these 2 years, 600 days and nights, he couldn't forget that his mother couldn't even die in peace. He couldn't forget that knife that had slashed at his master. Every night when he dreamt, he could only grieve alone. He couldn't sleep at night. He wanted to go back all the time and personally send those enemies to the Yellow Springs. All right. Chu Qingyan nodded solemnly. Not long later, everyone once again gathered at Songyu Hall. This time, Elder Zhua and the other 2 were also brought over. They were untied and given a seat by Chu Qingyan. Young sect master, you've finally admitted your identity. The heavens have opened their eyes. When Elder Zhua heard the news, he was overjoyed. Wrinkles appeared on his face as he smiled. Then young sect master, quickly come back with us to inherit the throne. Protector Chui's previous unfriendliness was swept away, and he said in an urgent tone. The other woman was called Gui Xiangjuan. She was called Elder Gui. At this time, she was also excited. Yes, this way, the Yu clan won't dare to harass us anymore. We can also regain our past prosperity. Let's see if they dare to invade our territory in the future. Chu Qingyan glanced at the 3 people and smiled. There's no hurry. Today's events were too sudden. Jean Xian has been with us for so many years. He probably won't be back for a long time. Therefore, we plan to keep him for a few more days and hold a farewell banquet to send him off. That won't do. We have to go back as soon as possible. After the joy passed, Elder Zhua immediately regained his dignity in the clan and waved his hand mercilessly. Xiao Su smiled coldly. It's not up to you to decide. Your Majesty Xishuan, this is our North Korea's matter. Although you're the ruler of a country, you can't interfere with us. Elder Gui raised her chin slightly and said righteously. At this time, Xiao closed his folding fan and touched his chin. Didn't you say that you've been looking for Jean Xian for 10 years? That means you've been bullied by the Yu clan for 10 years. It's been so long. 1 or 2 more days won't make a difference. Why are you in such a hurry? Unless what? Elder Zhua's eyebrows twitched. Xiao chuckled then paused. His tone was slightly cold. Unless you're hiding something from us. What you said before was not the truth. Elder Zhua and the others were stunned. It seemed that they had underestimated these people. Elder Zhua lowered his head. A dark light flashed in his eyes, but he smiled. How is that possible? Since you can't bear to part with our young sect master, then we'll listen to him. He can stay as long as he wants. We're not in a hurry. In an instant they changed their tone. Compared to their previous overbearing attitude, they were now extremely respectful. Jean Xian wasn't the only one who felt that something was wrong. Everyone present was good at scheming. How could they not see that there was something fishy going on? In that case, it seems that this king has gauged the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a villain. Xiao casually apologized. Meanwhile, Elder Zhua and the others responded with a fake smile. Jean Xian glanced at his master. After receiving the message, he turned his head and said, Then we'll stay for 3 more days. But let me say this first. I'm only going back to take a look. I'm not going to inherit the position of sect master. Elder Zhua and the others nodded. They would trick him to go back first. Once he returned to the Ri clan, it would no longer be up to him. Chapter 1535. Elder Zhua and the others had changed their faces so quickly that Chu Qingyan was still worried. After returning to Yansu Palace, Chu Qingyan sat in her room and pondered for a long time, until Xiao Su returned. What's wrong? Sitting here alone in a daze? Where's Kong Kong? Xiao Su sat down beside her and put his hand on her shoulder, leaning her towards him. She then returned to her senses and leaned her head on his shoulder, closing her tired eyes. I was thinking about something just now, so I was a little distracted. Kong Kong is with Dad and Mom. What are you thinking about? Xiao Su touched her face and found that her body was a little cold. So he pulled her into his arms and warmed her with his body temperature. Chu Qingyan opened her eyes and was a little hesitant. Xiao Su saw her hesitation and squeezed her hand. With a slightly serious expression, he said, Is there anything that I can't know? Maybe it's better to tell me so that I can share some of your burden. She rubbed his chin and acted like a little girl. I'm just afraid that my imagination will run wild and cause you trouble. Xiao Su straightened her body and held her shoulders tightly with both hands. His expression was even more serious than before. There shouldn't be any secrets between husband and wife, let alone being afraid of causing each other trouble. Isn't this what you said before? Isn't there always trouble between the two of us? Do we still need to treat each other like outsiders? Feeling that the big ice cube was a little angry, she was a little annoyed. Why did she say something like that just now? She leaned forward and wrapped her arms around his neck. Pressing her face against the side of his face, she said coquettishly, Aren't I confused because I'm too concerned? Don't be so calculative with me. When have I ever been calculative with you? If it were me, you would have thrown a tantrum with me a long time ago. You only allow the state officials to set fires, but not the common people. Xiao Su raised his hand and tapped her nose lightly, his tone helpless and doting. She wanted to say that she didn't. But when she thought about it, she realized that she was in the wrong. She stuck out her tongue. After that, she took the initiative to reveal the contents of her conversation with Jean Xian today. Then she commented, I always feel that the three of them don't act in a straightforward manner at all. That protector Chui is eccentric, and that elder Gue is gloomy. Although that elder Zhua looks like an elder, I always feel that something is wrong. I don't know if I'm overthinking it. Xiao Su stroked her long hair, his expression unchanged. You think there's something wrong with them? Yes. I'm thinking that if they brought Jin Xian back, it might not be as simple as just inheriting a clan. She paused and organized her words before continuing. Jin Xian said that the Sunblaze sect was heavily damaged by the Dim Moon sect in his father's hands. That was 10 years ago. But thinking about it carefully, if they really wanted to let Jin Xian inherit it, they wouldn't have waited until now. I keep feeling that they're hiding something from us. The little fellow's intuition had always been very accurate. In addition, when he was observing these people, he also noticed some problems. It was just that North Korea was not within the fierce cavalry's territory, so he did not know much about the situation in this country. After pondering for a moment, he said, Did you encourage Jin Xian to change his mind and decide to return to North Korea? She was stunned, then nodded. I don't want him to feel regret when he thinks about it for the rest of his life. Xiao Su smiled. This was her style. She had always been protective. Then what do you plan to do? Originally, I planned to hand the fierce cavalry to Jin Xian, then ask you to let Turin lead a team back with him. But now? What do you think now? Seeing that she was hesitating, Xiao Su pretended to be indifferent, and led her to continue speaking. Chu Qingyan looked up, as if she had made a decision. She looked into his eyes and said, Now I want to go back with him. If I don't see it for myself, I won't be at ease. When she finished speaking, Xiao Su's movements suddenly paused. His gaze instantly turned cold as he looked back at her. Have you ever thought about whether I'll be at ease? Knowing that he would react like this, Chu Qingyan hugged him tightly. She blinked and said, I won't let myself be in any danger. Xiao Su raised a brow. There's no use acting cute. But we've all seen how much Jin Xian has done in the past 6 years. Now that he's in such a big situation, I can't just stand by and watch. He has sacrificed too much for me, and he's going to marry my Xining. To me, he's like my little brother, and I want to do something for him. Chu Qingyan gave up acting cute, and told him her thoughts seriously. She knew that the big ice block was a reasonable person. Of course, he was reasonable to everyone except her. Seeing that the little girl was so serious after being fooled by him, Xiao Su couldn't help but laugh. Chu Qingyan was dumbfounded. She was trying so hard to reason with him and analyze the situation, but he was laughing. Was she too serious, or were they not on the same channel? Xiao Su raised his hand and pinched her cheek. He shook his head and laughed. Why didn't you ask for my help? You want me to go with you? Her eyes brightened slightly, but she seemed to have thought of something, and the light in her eyes dimmed. If it was in the past, I would definitely drag you along. But now you have so many things to do. If you really go with me, won't I become a demon concubine that the whole world spits at me and spits at me? I finally got rid of this infamy, and now I have to tell them that yes, you're right, I'm a disaster. I won't do it. The little girl in front of him looked so cute when she was angry. Xiao Su couldn't help but steal a kiss before saying, You are. Even if you want to be an evil concubine, I'm afraid you won't have the chance. What do you mean? She was dizzy from his kiss and didn't react for a while. Evil concubine, your husband has to be the emperor. Xiao Su smiled mysteriously. Chu Qingyan seemed to have understood something, but her curiosity was piqued by him. Don't mute me, hurry up and say it. Seeing that it was about time, Xiao Su slowly said, Before the new year, I was already transferring the men of the fierce cavalry, and I have already delegated the power in my hands. Even if I want to be a hands-off shopkeeper now, it won't be a problem. The fire that had been extinguished in her eyes reignited. She murmured, So what you mean is, the plan from 2 years ago can now be completed. That year when he received the imperial edict from his imperial grandfather, he had thought of passing it to his younger brother. It was a pity that the situation at court was too chaotic, and he was too irresponsible. So he came up with this plan. Once everything settled down, he would retire. Then after your test, which imperial brother will take over? She blinked her large eyes and curiously leaned forward. Xiao Su smiled. Guess. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.